Thank you. So for this session, we'll be requesting the speakers one by one to give their address. We have about 10 minutes for each speaker. They can speak either from, from where they are seated, or they can come to the podium and speak as well. So we'll be starting with Dr. Drew Alexander Combs, the President of the North Dakota Trade Office in the United States, an organization dedicated to promoting international trade and strengthening global economic partnership. With significant experience in international trade development and market expansion, he works closely with businesses and institutions to create new investment opportunities and foster cross-border collaboration. Through his leadership, the North Dakota Trade Office has expanded global engagement initiatives and strengthened international partnerships that facilitate economic growth and innovation. So I'll request him to deliver his address. This works.
Works? Everybody hear me? Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for that nice introduction. Yes. So let me tell you a little bit about North Dakota. And it's really interesting that this is a blue economy conversation about a marine environment. In North America, you can't get further from the ocean than in North Dakota. We are actually the geographic center of North America. But with that, we produce massive amounts of agriculture products, a lot of which is consumed here in India. We are also, on any given day, the number 2 or number 3 hydrocarbon producer. We produce a lot of oil and gas, and we produce other energy products. That's really our 2 big things. We have some defense industries and that sort of thing, but the real point of all this is, again, I couldn't get any further from the water if I wanted to, yet it's a vital resource for us to get our products to our customers. 80% of what is produced in my state leaves the state. Out of that 80%, 90% goes abroad. So it is imperative that we utilize the ocean or oceans for transportation, and it does no human any good to destroy or harm that environment. So it's a big concern for even us that live in a landlocked area. It's the lifeblood of the world, and we do need to figure out how to take care of it.
Thank you so much. We also have with us on stage Mr. Dennis Hastert, an experienced international business leader who currently serves on the board of directors of the South Dakota Trade Office in the United States. With decades of experience in international trade and global market development, he has worked extensively with businesses seeking to expand their presence in international markets. His expertise lies in building global trade partnerships, supporting cross-border investment opportunities, and help industries navigate the complexities of international commerce. I'll now request him to address this wonderful gathering.
Good afternoon, and thank you for letting us join you today. So I am with South Dakota Trade, and South Dakota is an agricultural state. We produce a lot of corn and soybeans, but we also have over 900 companies that have niche markets, and we export a lot of smaller volumes of things besides just corn and soybeans. One of the things that really interests me for this conference is what I've been working on for the last 10 years. South Dakota is not near any oceans or waterways, but I've been working on a protein ingredient for aquaculture for farm-raised fish and shrimp. And with that, it's a soy-based product, and we've developed that into a super protein ingredient that goes into the aquaculture diets and helps to grow the fish faster and cleans up the water. We can reduce the environmental discharge from an aquaculture farm by 50 to 70% by just feeding our protein ingredient. So South Dakota is home for that. We grow the soybeans, we convert the soybeans into meal, and then we do a biotech process to convert that into this highly digestible protein source.
Well, short and sweet are the addresses. So we'll move to our next speaker. We have with us Dr. Ajit Patnaik, a senior advisor at the World Bank with extensive experience in development policy, infrastructure planning, and sustainable economic growth. Over the course of his career, he has worked closely with government, development institution, and international agency on initiatives related to urban infrastructure, energy transition, climate resilience, and public sector reform. His work focuses on designing strategic frameworks that support sustainable development while strengthening economic competitiveness. It'll be an honor to now request Dr. Patnaik to address this wonderful gathering as well.
Good afternoon, fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here in this wonderful and inspiring panel, right? So, wonderful perspective have been given by my co-panelists. So, let me put something in Indian perspective, right? So, whenever I think of blue economy, something always reminds me that we have got such a kind of fantastic and vast ocean and marine resources, very strong science, right? Technology, also the well matured the marine and the coastal sectors, right? Then what is lacking? Why we are here to discuss this? So from the World Bank, I was involved in providing some input for shaping up of the India's blue economy policy, which is now in the draft stage. So then when you did an deep analysis, we found that what is lacking is the leadership to become transformative. I think the how you would say that, do you think there is no leadership with us? Yeah, it is very much there, but it is not coordinated leadership, right? So we're tasked to provide our input based on some of the global benchmarking to see how our policies would evolve. So when we tried to kind of do it, so my role was to look at the strongest pillar, which is known as the institution pillar, or the so what I did, our approach was to through a systematic lens see what are the gap analysis with our current institutional architecture, what is there, right? Then we try to benchmark it with the global leaders or the forerunners, where the blue economy policy is really in the very good shape. We try to benchmark our situation with these countries. Then we try to also see which are relevant to us, like our political system, where the federal the system is in practice. There's the governance. So what we got out of it through this analysis, one thing which became very clear is that we have world-class institutions. There is no doubt about it, but they often operate in silos. I think during the lunchtime I was discussing with some of my colleagues who also endorsed it. Each ministry, they're very competent. Our R&D institution, I think they are by far the best. I think you can compare them with any global R&D institution, right? We have got fisheries, we have got ports, what we listen during the plenary session, environment, coastal zone management, science, and each has got its own mandate, right? And they're accountable also from that perspective. But the ocean does not recognize these boundaries. I think you may have ministries, you say that this is my mandate, this is my mandate, this is my boundary, but ocean, what was very nicely put by the, in our previous plenary session, that is all connected, right? So you can't put these boundaries, you know, your whatever you are doing, and so that is the one of the biggest gap which we identify. And the another gap is that is the ocean data. I think we have got a real wealth of data which is sitting in a very scattered manner with different, you know, agencies, with different department or with the different ministries. So without integrating them into a very robust, you know, ocean intelligence system, we normally what we are doing now, we are ending up with reacting to the issues rather than anticipating them. I think that is one of the gap which we could found from the when we benchmark this our institution with the global one. And finally, the last mile institution. I think we're lacking the stewardship. I think stewardship is again at different level, particularly at the state union government, but from the blue economic per se, there is absolutely no formal mechanism. Forget about the grassroots level community stewardship or the community level institution stewardship. So that's a missed opportunity. I think that's why, you know, many things does not trickle down, and everything happens, the ownership is not coming in right earnest, right? So then we try to find out what these global leaders do differently. I mean, what we are, where we are lacking, right? So when we looked at the countries who are forerunner or who are really, you know, kind of, they have successfully implemented the blue economy. Of course, there are a number of them. So we started with Norway, then Australia, Portugal, and Indonesia, where we found that these kind of our system or our political system as well as our resource, natural resources match with that. So what we got out of it, first is that there we found one empowered national authority, which has got that much of mandate and also that has got, you know, the capability to anchor and coordinate across the sectors, right? This was uniform in all these countries which were benchmarked. Then they have got integrated ocean accounts. What was told in the previous session also, unless you know your wealth, you understand, I mean, your estate as a owner, then I think what you would be able to do, you must value them properly. Like what is told about the carbon sequestration, they see, these are the real contribution which flows silently. That's why they're never, you know, kind of taken into account. But that's why a robust ocean accounting that should be integrated, that would guide the investment and regulation, and also a regional and community level institution like the state, the federal system should sync with each other, and an innovation system that are tightly linked to the maritime priorities. I think we have to set the priorities and see to it how it can happen. So what is recommended by us is that the first is the one national blue economy authority, all right? That would be a single apex body that can align with science, policy, and investment as well as the regulation. Second, the state level blue economy cells. Each coastal state should have a blue economy cell which would be again aligned with the national authority. And of course, I think this is what we thought is highly essential. And the third one was the National Ocean Data and Intelligence Platform, which these are three major recommendations which came from the institution point of view. And finally, the community level stewardship. I think the Blue Economy Development Committee, we saw that most of the, the people who live in the coast, they need to be, kind of taken on board for the ownership and stewardship. Without that, I think it is not going to succeed. So my final reflection would be the leadership in blue economy is ultimately about creating coherence in space that is naturally complex. Certainly, I think we know this. So the ocean is a single interconnected system, and our institution must learn to behave the same way. I think we can't dictate the ocean to the way we want. Then what India needs now is not more programs, but more alignment. I think these intersectoral coordination, interministerial coordination, national state coordination. So these alignment between the science policy, between state center, between innovation, industry, entrepreneurs, and most importantly between the national ambition and community stewardship. I think we have to, it should trickle down to the community level. When these pieces move together, transformation becomes inevitable. So if we get this right, then I believe the coastal and marine resources, which we have got, blessed with that, certainly we are blessed with that, will not just support the economic growth, but it will anchor climate resilience, maritime security, and global competitiveness. India has a capability to lead the world in demonstrating how blue economy can be both sustainable and economically transformative. But for that, I think this coherence and coordination is highly essential. So thank you. Delighted to be a part of this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now that we have heard these valuable insights and perspective from our speakers, we would like to open this forum for some questions. So if there are any questions from the audience, we would like to take them, that you have a microphone right in front, so you can just raise your hand and then introduce yourself and ask the question. Whether it's to all of them or to a particular speaker, you can mention that as well.
Good afternoon, sir. Am I audible, sir? Good afternoon, sir. My name is Sanjay, sir. I own a small enterprise and consultancy supporting the MSMEs of India. What I understand that you believe that Government of India and Government of Odisha is not having a blue economic policy right now in an organized way.
Yes, as I mentioned, the blue economy policy of Government of India is still in a draft form, right? After the inputs were provided by different agencies and the entities, now they have compiled it and it is with the DEA for the, so as you know, there is a system of approval to become a national policy. There is a system. But some of the states have got some policies, but what I observed is that this need to be in sync with the national policy, and there should be kind of coordination between the center and state. Then only it would become effective, right?
Alignment is remaining a key factor. Alignment is a very key factor, I believe.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. Can I have a question to the people from North Dakota? North Dakota is far away from the sea, and just wanted to know how they are integrated into blue economy and what are their perspectives about it.
It's a really good question. So let me make sure I got that. That since we're so far from any ocean, how is North Dakota helping the blue economy?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so it's really simple. We're very dependent on moving our products overseas. So one of the things that we do is we do partner with states and Canadian provinces that are connected to those water bodies and work on these issues that are directly connected to the blue economy. And one of the things I want to talk about North Dakota is, oh, okay, yeah, thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So one of the things in North Dakota, again, we're a massive energy producer. We have vast amounts of natural gas, oil. We also use a lot of wind power. We've got solar, hydro, et cetera. We have everything in the package except for nuclear. So one of the things we've been working on in North Dakota is actually, and I know I've got a bunch of scientists in here and folks like that, so you're probably going to roll your eyes. But we're working on solving the problem of taking carbon out of the equation, but still utilizing those traditional fuel sources. So I'll give you an example. So we're using our ethanol facilities that produces ethanol and also produces mass amounts of carbon. So we're actually capturing all that carbon off of the ethanol plants as well as our coal plants, and we're injecting it into the ground. We have a formation in North Dakota that sucks up carbon like a sponge. And there we can permanently store it. And we've done a lot of studies before we even did it. It's safe and reliable and effective. And we can either permanently store it or we can utilize it for enhanced oil recovery. So from my understanding, it takes 3 carbon molecules to replace 1 hydrocarbon molecule. So again, that would be oil and gas. So if you do the math, when you bring that hydrocarbon molecule up to the surface, you've just put 3 carbon in the ground. So again, this is the part where I might get some eye rolls, but in a sense, what you have is a carbon neutral barrel of oil at the end of the day. So we're taking steps like that to try to help out, utilizing a lot more wind power. And again, we're also working with our partners to sustain a blue economy. The closest port that we have, I'm sure a lot of you are knowledgeable about the Great Lakes system. So the last port on the Great Lakes system is the Port of Duluth in Minnesota. And that's kind of what we use as our port. It's about 500 miles away from North Dakota. And we regularly, interesting enough, bring renewable parts from the Scandinavian countries, mostly wind turbines, the wind blades, and that sort of thing. That actually come and we install there in North Dakota. So again, might be in the center of the country, but we're still very reliant on our maritime transportation and that sort of thing. And I did want to mention one other thing since we're on the subject, if you don't mind. The distinguished gentleman on the left, he spoke about the interconnectedness of us and the world. And I can't think how, a more important message than that. We're all linked. Whether we like it or not, whatever politics are doing, we were blessed with some very nice waterways so we can stay connected. And we need to work on that. We need to be good stewards of what we were given as a way of being connected to each other, and it takes everybody, even those that are stuck in the middle. And I will say this, that I most of my life's been around the ocean. It just wasn't until about 15 years ago that I was actually landlocked, but thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? There is one, yes.
Hello. Yeah, I am Dr. Vasudevakar from Sikha Sandhan University. And so thank you for this nice information of this blue economy. So my question will be to Dr. Aziz sir. Sir, we are talking about fishes and crabs and everything about the marine ecosystem, but I am more concentrating on the seaweeds, because as in Odisha, the largest brackish water lagoon is there in Chilika. So how you can integrate this blue economy by taking the seaweeds and for the development of sustainable livelihood of the local communities of Odisha? Please, sir.
Thank you for the nice question. In fact, forget about Odisha, even from our country perspective, hardly any, mariculture or since you raise the seaweed, there is no systematic seaweed culture in practice now. So in the blue economy policy, I think even the state fisheries department, they are looking at the mariculture as a whole, where the seaweed, of course, is part of it. It has got a huge potentiality, but is not tapped, even the national level, right? So you are absolutely correct. I think there is huge potentiality. It has, but it is not yet put into in real perspective. So technology is there, but it needs to be implemented. So I believe in. There is a stress. In the national budget also, it was mentioned to put stress on it. So in Odisha also, yesterday I think we're in a consultation with the fishery department, Odisha. So they are also planning to do the capacity development as well as facilitate this. So at the policy level, it is already there, need to be implemented in the field.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have any more questions?
Just had a question.
Yes, sir, please.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Arabinda Mitra. My question is actually to Dr. Patnaik. I just discovered, as you rightly said, there are more than a dozen Government of India departments working in the ocean space, and like any other government, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And that's a challenge. And sometimes back, I do remember there was this concept of creating an ocean commission on the patterns of the ISRO or the Space Commission that takes an integrated approach. So what is your idea in creating an umbrella body of this type, a commission which has empowered to take decisions in all areas of ocean, science, technology, and across, including aspects of blue economy?
Wonderful. I think here the MOES is also, in fact, that was the biggest and the largest gap which we could identify, that it needs some kind of umbrella structure with mandate as well as the, kind of both policy and empowered by the statute and policy. So that is what has been suggested. I believe it is there is a system, as I said. So this is gone for approval. Similar structure is being suggested, I think, once the blue economy policy is there. So the priority was given on this, I think, the institutional architecture, where, because once this happens, then only the coordination and integration would happen. For that, you need something at a very concrete at the policy level.
Any more questions, or we could... All right, I guess that's it. So can we have a big round of applause for all our speakers? And may I request Dr. Bhubaneswar, Chairman BCKIC, to please join on stage and felicitate our panelists here. Present a token of appreciation memento to first Dr. Drew Alexander Combs, President, North Dakota Trade Office, USA. Yes, I'll request all of them to step forward, and then we can have a group photograph at end. So to Mr. Drew Alexander Combs, President, North Dakota Trade Office, USA. A big round of applause. To Mr. Dennis Hastad, Board of Directors, South Dakota Trade Office, USA. And of course, to Dr. Ajit Patnaik, Senior Advisor, World Bank. And of course, a group photograph. Thank you so much, gentlemen. As we take a few more minutes to set the stage for the next session, get the chairs ready, get our speaker list ready, I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank our partners without whose support this summit would not have been possible. We are very grateful to the Commerce and Transport Department, Government of Odisha, for their support, our knowledge partners, Andhra Pradesh MedTech Zone, Gujarat Biotechnology University, our ecosystem partners, Ministry of Earth Sciences, Government of India, DBT BIRAC, ISBA, TIE Bhubaneswar, Taylor & Francis, ACS East and Northeast Chapter, and ABLE. Thank you to all our partners for your support. Can we also have a round of applause for all of them for extending their support to this global summit? We'll, of course, set the stage, and we'll be starting with the next session. We would also like to inform that this, of course, is going to be an important session, Blue Economy and Socioeconomic Impact. But after that, we would be running parallel sessions. We've already been informing that since the morning, but I would like to once again inform that after this, we'll be moving into the parallel session segment, while discussions will continue here in the main hall. A parallel technical session will also be taking place in the conference hall 1 on the first floor. So participants who wish to attend that session are most welcome to proceed there. Just for your information, the session after this would be, when we start the parallel session segment, would be Blue Biotechnology and Marine Bio Resources. That will be on the first floor. Will be chaired by Professor Subir Majumdar, Director General, Gujarat Biotechnology University. And the session that will continue in the main hall would be Ocean Intelligence, Data Forecasting, and Climate Risk. Similarly, for the last session, we will again have parallel sessions running. So we'll have one session here. The faculty and student innovation presentations chaired by Dr. Bhavik Shone will be taking place in the first floor. And we'll have a session on ecosystem approach towards sustainable blue economy in the main hall. So all those participants who are interested to go to the first floor will have to do that after this session once we start the parallel sessions. So ladies and gentlemen, now we are ready to move to our next discussion titled Blue Economy and Socio-Economic Impact, which will explore how the blue economy can create sustainable livelihood, strengthen coastal community, and drive inclusive economic growth. So I'd like to invite our session chair and our panelists to kindly join on stage, and let's give a big round of applause as we welcome them on stage. Our session chair, Shri Satya Tripathi, Secretary General, GSP USA, who would also be presenting the leadership talk. We'll have Ms. Rituparna De, Head CSR Epsilon Carbon Private Limited, Ms. Jennifer Warren, Founder Conceptual Elemental USA, Dr. Girija Bharat, Managing Director, Mugama Consultants Private Limited, Mugama Consultants Private Limited, and Shri Vikram Singh, CEO and co-founder, Daruka Earth. So these are going to be our panelists for this session. We'll also have the esteemed presence of Shri Prem Chandra Chaudhary, Commissioner cum Secretary, Fisheries and Animal Resources Development Department, Government of Odisha. He'll be joining in a short while from now. So we'll have all our speakers. Let's welcome them with a big round of applause. We have already been introduced to our session chair earlier during a discussion, the Secretary General of the Global Alliance for a Sustainable Planet USA, a globally respected leader in sustainable development and environmental governance. We have with us Ms. Rituparna De, the Head of Corporate Social Responsibility at Epsilon Carbon Private Limited. She brings significant experience in designing and implementing large-scale social developmental programs focused on sustainable livelihood, community development, and environmental sustainability. Prior to her current role, she has worked with leading organizations, including UNICEF India and the Smile Foundation, where she contributed to initiatives related to education, healthcare, and social empowerment. At Epsilon Carbon, she leads impactful CSR programs that support rural communities, women empowerment, and climate-resilient agriculture practices. We have with us Ms. Jennifer Warren, the founder of Conceptual Elemental Strategic Advisory Platform focused on energy, infrastructure technology, and global economic transition. She has extensive experience in communication strategy and international policy engagement related to energy system, industrial transformation, and sustainable development. Through her work, she supports institutions and organizations in translating complex global trends into actionable strategies and partnership. We also have with us Dr. Girija Bharat, Managing Director of Gamma Consultants Private Limited, a leading sustainability and circular economy advisory firm with deep expertise in environmental management, waste management system, and circular economy solutions. She's led numerous national and international initiatives focused on resource efficiency and sustainable development, actively collaborates with government, industries, and international organizations to design policies and strategies that promote environmental sustainability and responsible resource use. And of course, we have Shivikram Singh, CEO and co-founder of Dakota, the sustainability-focused enterprise dedicated to developing innovative solutions for environmental challenges. With experience in leadership, strategy, and product innovation, he works at the intersection of business and sustainability to build enterprises that prioritize both economic growth and environmental responsibility. His work focuses on creating scalable solutions that contribute to climate resilience and sustainable development. We, of course, heard about it during the startup pitch as well. And now I'll request our session chair, Shri Satya Tripathi, to deliver the leadership talk and also take the session forward from here. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank our esteemed panelists who are here today. You will be hearing from a very eclectic mix of distinguished speakers that are from a range of, from business to advisory to industry to academia, and so it's a very balanced group of speakers. And it's also great that we have a gender-balanced group of speakers, which is not what you see often in these conversations, what we in the UN language call manels. So there are a lot of men in the conversation and very few women. So I'm so delighted that we are a gender-balanced panel. Let me start by trying to wake you up, because I assume you all had a great lunch. And the previous panel was excellent, and I'm sure they did their part in keeping you awake. But it's also that, towards the later part of the afternoon, we feel a little sleepy. So let me try and see if we can keep you awake and hold your attention. Let me start by saying something very provocative, but factual. The emissions per capita, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, it counts emissions per capita for one reason, because it is anthropogenic climate change. So it's human-induced climate change. So obviously, of course, there are a lot of metrics used which are kind of convenient for a certain set of countries and inconvenient for a certain set of countries. Like, we should all have the same carbon standards. Sorry, because a lot of countries actually used up all the carbon, and now they want all of us to have the same standards. It doesn't work for us in a developing country context. At the same time, while that is something that we don't like, especially countries in the global south who had very little to contribute to the historical emissions, but are now going to suffer equally or even worse because we have less resources to deal with the challenges of rising seas or contaminated water or polluted air. We have to deal with it. Dahlberg did a study in partnership with the Government of India. It was published 2 years ago. Google, if you want to read that report. They said that the hit to India's GDP for air pollution alone is $95 billion a year. That's how bad air pollution is for our economy. Forget public health and all. Of course, it all feeds into that calculation. Now, here is the challenge for Odisha, because we're talking about Odisha and the blue economy. The national average per capita footprint is roughly about 2.8 tons. Give or take a few, that's the number. Odisha's average per capita carbon footprint is 6.9 tons. It's more than twice, actually. In 2005, Odisha's per capita was 2.57 tons. So it's jumped to 6.9 tons. It has brought with it quite a bit of prosperity. As the Chief Secretary rightly pointed out in the morning, that we are a $113 billion economy by GSDP, gross state domestic product. But that's aided and abetted by the mining industry, all the revenues that come from it. So that brings with it two big challenges. The first is that when the mining reserves run out, we'll have a sharp drop in the revenues of the state and of people as well, because a lot of people are involved in that industry. It gives a lot of employment to communities across the state. The second big challenge is that when carbon acquires the price it should, and it is steadily heading in that direction. Now let me share with you a little example from Europe. Europe has something called the ETS. They treat carbon as an allowance, So in the beginning of the year, every industry is provided an allowance based on how much they produced, what's their needs, and so they get a certain allowance, which is nominally priced at 100 euros a ton, irrespective of the fact that the voluntary carbon market carbon prices are hovering somewhere around between $15 to $20. And of course, even in the VCM, the good carbon, as many would call it, the mangroves and biochar, are selling for more than $100. So the pricing is already there. Now, India, 30, 40 years ago, had a system where the states could borrow as much as they pleased, based on their own economic plan and their growth trajectory. You could go to the markets, and as long as the market was ready to give you some money, you borrowed it. And then what happened was that many states were in a very poor economic condition. So roughly 20 years ago, the Government of India passed a law in the parliament called the FRBM statute, the Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Statute, where it says that your borrowing must keep up with your GSDP and your growth trajectory. You can't just borrow with an imaginary scenario in mind. It must be in relation to your economic strength, which is what any company does or any government should do, but it wasn't happening. My fear is that, and that fear has a factual basis, is that what happens 10 years down the line when carbon really has a price of $100 a ton, and then if we don't find a pathway to become a low carbon economy in Odisha, then what happens to that 6.9 tons per capita carbon footprint? That's even at a $100 price. That's a conservative estimate by 2030, by the way. We're talking about budgeting $690 for every individual in Odisha to be able to offset that. Of course, India has promised 2070 as the net zero target, but that's an ambitious target, I agree, but at the same time, it's a problematic one. It's a problematic one, not because we are not trying to do the right thing, we are. It's a problematic one is that every country that is now putting in place low carbon economic pathways and spending large amounts of money for this is going to put barriers, economic barriers. Let's look at Europe. Europe has put in place something called the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, CBAM, what does it say? It's simply put in layperson's language that if I am pricing my carbon at 100 euros a ton, if you are trying to bring products and sell it here, you will have to sell it. The product must have been produced at an efficiency that I attach to my, let's say steel. Odisha has a big steel plant in Rourkela, right? So the Indian steel, the average footprint of every ton of steel produced in India, depending on which company and how efficient they are, is between 1.8 to 2.3 tons per ton of steel produced, crude steel produced, right? So we have to get to net zero at some point of time. but Europe is way ahead. And that's how they have priced their carbon border adjustment mechanism. So once that comes into play, even though we want to be net zero by 2070, that has no meaning for Europe. Europe wants to use it today so that your steel, if not produced at the same efficiency as of steel that is produced in Europe, you will have to pay that offset at 100 euros per ton to sell your steel there, because that's how they balance it out. That's the carbon border adjustment mechanism. And so these kind of barriers will keep coming up in different parts of the world, whether we like it or not, whether we are victims of a global arrangement that's not just, that's unfair, and I think everybody in the room will agree to that, but that is reality as well. And so when we discuss the blue economy and the socio-economic impact of a blue economy, I think we need to focus on that challenge, How do we get Odisha down from 6.9 tons to the national average? Because that then at least makes it equal for us at a state level within the country, so that we're in a good place. And then, of course, then we join that big stream of sustainability that will take us all to net zero by 2070. Or if the Government of India changes its minds, brings it back to 2060 or 2050, that's the national decision that the government will have to take. But at this time, our goal is 2070. So I think the discussion today will focus quite a bit on where are the opportunities for a state like Odisha that has a 575-kilometer coastline and with lots of opportunities. We heard about seaweed, we heard about mangroves. Mangrove carbon is one of the priciest carbons in terms of carbon credits, but that's just a small part of the story. Mangroves also prevent, and I just was at a meeting with the Chief Secretary, and honestly speaking, I don't praise bureaucrats that easily, because the taste of the pudding is in the eating. And I have been to 120 countries and met enough bureaucrats and enough politicians to know what I'm talking about, but I'm quite impressed with her passion to do something for Odisha. And so I'm sincerely hoping that we'll be able to do great things with her at the helm of the bureaucracy. So that's a good start, that we have somebody who's really passionate about what she does. But in terms of the opportunities, if you look at mangroves alone, Odisha has the potential for about 26,000 hectares of mangroves. So apart from the carbon money it can generate for the communities, it also is the nursery to coastal fisheries, to shrimps and lobsters and all kinds of pricey aquatic species that would give us a great access to the markets around the world without having to grow shrimp with all kinds of antibiotics and fertilizers that you have seen along the coastline of Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh is the largest shrimp exporter, but it has also destroyed their coastal ecosystem in a big way. And then there are other opportunities, in terms of seaweeds, in terms of other carbon projects you can do, that it can really, and then of course on land as well, you can work on different ideas, simple ideas that have great potential of getting across the communities, and sometimes the blue economy is seen in isolation, which is not a great idea. And I was listening to Mr. Patnaik earlier, and he put this point across very eloquently, that you have to see everything as a continuum. There is no ocean in and of itself. Whatever we find in the ocean, the great soup of DNA and everything, the confluence of everything that comes, it all comes from the land. The 7 breached planetary boundaries is not something of the making of the ocean. It's we, the people on the land, and the destruction of the landscapes and the ecosystems and the ecology that has flown into the oceans. So how do we prevent things on land so that we can have a blue economy that is really giving and forgiving? So that's what we need to do. And so that's with that, I will stop here, and I'll go back to where I should be, and then invite others to speak. I'll be moderating, right?
Thank you so much, Shri Satya Tripathi. Before I request you to take this session forward, we would like to inform that Dr. Girija Bharat, Managing Director, MU Gamma Consultant Private Limited. We had already introduced her. She's joined us now. And we also have with us Shri Prem Chandra Chaudhary, Commissioner cum Secretary, Fisheries and Animal Resources Development Department, Government of Odisha. In his current role, he oversees policy initiatives aimed at strengthening the fisheries, aquaculture, and allied sectors, areas which are critical to coastal livelihood and the state's growing blue economy ecosystem. He also brings extensive experience in the agriculture and rural development sectors, has served as Director of Agriculture and Food Production, where he worked on initiatives to enhance agriculture productivity, support farmers, and promote modern farming practices, has also served as Managing Director, Odisha Agro Industries Corporation Limited, and Director, Textiles and Handlooms, Odisha. So we are privileged to have him with us today. So I'll now request Shri Satya Tripathi ji to take the session forward from here.
Thank you so much. So we'll now delve into the subject, and luckily for us, it's a very unusual thing. We got a little extra time for our session, so because the last session started early and finished early, so we will have a little more. So just to our panelists, you will have a little more time to share your insights, because we were all worried that we'll all end up with a little short amount of time, and that is something very useful. So let me start with, I'll come to each one of you with specific questions, but let me start by asking a very general framing question from your point of view, your perspective, the government, the civil society, the advisory entities and the private sector and all. Where do you think the leverages really are in the blue economy, with some specific focus on a state like Odisha? So maybe 2 minutes each. So let's go straight one by one, so that I don't have to spend time calling upon each one of you. Should we start with Mr. Prem? Yeah. Please, kindly, go ahead.
Thank you. So first of all, I'll thank you, Commerce and Transport Department, organization, and especially Dr. Mrityunjay ji for inviting me. So if we see, as chair of the session has already told, that the blue economy is the kind of a sustainable management of the ocean and the coastal resources, basically. So the entire ecology has to be managed. Now, like in case we take the Andhra's issue, the impact of over-exploitation or use of chemicals has created some negative impact. So in that framework and the vision for the state for 2036 and for 47, state has already developed some kind of a framework for us. So like we are working for creating a Odisha shrimp mission. So currently, if we see, we are targeting around the additional production of shrimps 1.4 million metric ton. Currently, it is not up to that much. Then the lot of policies we are trying to revise, like CA. Under that, we are doing the shrimp cultivation up to only 2 kilometer, whereas Andhra is and few other states also doing up to 10 kilometer. So government is working on that sector. That is the second thing we are working upon. Then the deep sea fishing policy. Currently, we have very less deep sea fishing vessels. So that is also one part where we are not doing very good. We are targeting that by 29, we will have additional 150 deep sea fishing vessels, and we will upgrade our around 500 deep sea fishing vessels for that purpose. Other than that, we are also trying to create a kind of a hub, this blue economy hub, which will cater the requirement of the all kind of stakeholder for this purpose. Government, R&D, for R&D purpose, for exporters. As of now, what I know, almost no state have this kind of a functional building which can cater the requirement of all sector related to the blue economy. So we are, in principally, that is also is being worked out. So in coming few years, we will try to get these policies in place, create gap the infrastructure for the harbors, for the fish landing centers, and then this kind of policy reforms. This is our target, and for 36 and 46, we have already created some kind of roadmap, and we are interacting with all kind of sectors like private entrepreneurs or ICR organizations to get their feedback. I have also told my people, department and directorate people, to be present in each and every session to kind of get a essence and feedback from here and take it into the policy. So this is largely what we as a government in the fisheries department trying to put in place, and subsequently I will answer more questions, whatever will come from the panel. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Satya, and really thankful and grateful to Bhubaneswar City Knowledge Council, Mr. Bhubaneswar and Namrata for inviting me over for this session. And when I'm talking about blue economy, I tried to match my dress, coloring myself blue. To answer your question, as you were rightly quoting, healthy ocean is a key to sustainable future when it comes to both people and planet when we are talking about marine ecosystem. And it is our efforts, not only the public and the private, the government, it is a joint sustained effort of all the stakeholders put together where we can go a long way towards ensuring how we harness the resources of this ecosystem. Now, if I have to talk about what could be the most important factor or the action that can be taken into ground, would be addressing climate resilience with a foundational focus on three things. One is policy coherence. We've been talking about how we can integrate policy, cohesion, co-building, cooperative activity with nature-based solutions. And of course, when it comes to nature-based solutions, we were witnessing the startups coming and presenting their work. So it brings us to the second point of innovative technology and its usage. Finally, because I represent CSR, how can we leave the ecosystem of developing communities and their welfare activities? And that can be only done through community-centric development, action and opportunity creation for livelihood opportunities of those people who are at the hem of this offset of marine ecosystem. In one sentence, on one keyword, it is ecosystem integration with cohesion and collaborative efforts of multiple stakeholders where we align the policies, the government, and also we respect the fact that Mother Nature is a key role player. We must pay respect to what the Mother Nature wants from us. Thank you.
Hi, Jennifer Warren, Concept Elemental. So the initial question was sort of like, what was a priority or single most important action to deliver blue economy for Orissa and benefits for the community? And I'm from Dallas, Texas, and so we were sort of ground zero for the shale revolution, both in gas and then in oil. And so for the last 20 years, we've gone from importing to exporting, like being one of the top oil and gas exporters in the world. We have ports that we export from now because we produce so much. And like the port of Corpus Christi, which before, as I said, we were importing. And so So these ports have had to kind of shift the infrastructure, and because of it, a whole lot of ecosystems of services and other products have manifest around it. And so it's like when one type of business begins, it begets others. So there's sort of this like amplification process. So I'm sort of talking about this from a very like practical business point of view. And so what I would say too is that in thinking about this, I've done some work with the idea of natural capital, which is harnessing the Earth's resources, which includes the ocean. I'm very much done a lot of this work in a land-based way, but it translates absolutely to blue economy things as well. And so the idea of natural capital, of what ERISA can harness and the people is, just this responsibility of stewarding the assets well. And we think about this a lot with the lands of Texas, because we have massive ranches, and one of the goals is to try to do no harm, and leave things better for next generations. And so I would say one of the opportunities, perhaps as you're developing this blue economy, is it on? Hello? What?
Yeah, it's on, I guess.
Cheers. Check? Oh, okay, let's do this. Is that ERISA has this opportunity for this like new, fresh start, sort of this being like a frontier model. And I know a lot of the young people that want to start up businesses, that this is the thinking is, we want to be innovative, we want to use technology, and absolutely, you can do a lot of leapfrogging, as ERISANs. And, sort of the idea came to me about, if you're this frontier model, think of yourselves like AI models, like Claude, that you're on the edge of new things. And that's where I've seen a lot in the developments I've looked at and analyzed is many times you take what is old or existing and you create new markets or new ideas or do things differently. And I think that's the opportunity for India in general, is that they kind of have all this new opportunity, and you can start where you start and innovate and be creative. So, thank you.
Thank you, Bhubaneswar City Knowledge Innovation Cluster, for this opportunity. It's always a homecoming for me to come back and be here. The topic of blue economy, this is the best time, and there are like so many initiatives already we have heard from the secretary in the inaugural session and thereafter. So just the right time and the right fit, and we can actually catalyze it. We can harness, and Odisha having a 575-kilometer coastline and over 6 lakhs people dependent on the marine system. We have a lot to offer to the country, not just to the country, but the global platform. Odisha, we also heard from the Chief Secretary saying the EDGE. It was a very nice acronym, where the economy, demography, dividend, the geographical advantage, and the ecology of Odisha makes it very strategically positioned, and the time is now. With sustainability in focus, we have to be mindful that we don't lose focus on the sustainable aspects of harnessing blue economy. We have seen in the case of Gujarat, well, my organization does a lot of work with coastal cities, coastal states, and we have seen how much areas, pockets in Gujarat due to shipwrecking, shipbuilding activities is impacted, emerging contaminants, health impacts. So when we are talking about blue economy, sustainability has to be a big factor, because it's not only affecting the ecology, the environment, but also the economy. Because if shrimps, like Odisha has its focus on 2036 Samruddh Odisha, and if Odisha is not able to export shrimps or the marine products with the typical required compliance for European and other market, we will be at loss. So we have to see that we do it with lot of precision, we do it with compliance, and we keep health in focus. So as I mentioned, we have the advantage of demographic dividends. Skilling is also something very important. We have to keep the coastal ecosystem, coastal community at the heart of the blue economy revolution, I must say, and BCKIC is at the heart of it to take it to catalyze this movement. I'll come back with my more thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you. Great to be a part of this esteemed panel, I would say. I was just listening to my colleagues, Dr. Satya and Jennifer touched on the same thing to some extent. Climate change, carbon, nature, I don't think there's anyone in this room who will disagree that all of them have an economic impact. And because of the fact that they have an economic impact, they have an economic value. Coming to the question on what's the greatest opportunity that we see? For me, the single biggest priority is to make the communities not just co-beneficiaries of the model, but co-owners of nature. In Odisha or in any other place, I think if you ask a fisherman or if you ask a farmer or anyone, right, they would know the value of the output that they get in terms of a fish or a shrimp or any agri inputs. I think what is not visible to them is the reliable income stream that they can get from protecting the nature itself. Till the time we are able to do this at scale, whatever we are talking in terms of the blue economy, it will remain a policy sign, which is extremely important, but not really a livelihood strategy. So to me, the action is design every blue economy intervention for what is right now in just one revenue stream, which is say outputs from nature within these tangible parts that we mentioned, but come back to the other ecosystem services and the nature value of that, things like carbon finance, where they will be able to co-benefit from these models, and what is one income stream can essentially become at least two, if not three income streams, right? From carbon finance, from blue carbon finance. Also, Dr. Satya pointed out, blue carbon is one of the most premium priced carbon assets that we can talk about. So all of these are things which are opportunities which we need to harness on in the near term. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've heard some very promising action points because the question was, what is it that you think is most significant from your perspective?
I think he needs
and I wanted to segue from what Vikramji mentioned about harnessing the power of the carbon markets, something that seemingly has no value if you don't know about it. But if you know about it, it has immense value. Just take the cattle population of India. India has 200 million cattle. So for every four, and I know this because we've already, through one of our programs, we've rolled out 15,000 biodigesters in 7 states of India, but predominantly in Karnataka and Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, but also in Rajasthan and other states, in Gujarat and other states. You take the animal waste from 3 to 4 animals, about 50 kilos of waste, which normally would go into the ecosystem and destroy the shallow water bodies, the groundwater, through leaching, through methane emissions to the atmosphere, and infesting an insect population that turns epidemics to pandemics. And then it gives you 6 carbon credits per biodigester, which is more than enough to pay for all of it. And we have a LPG crisis right now in our country, and it gives you enough cooking gas for 6 to 8 hours in a day. Apart from all the environmental benefits, the family doesn't have to buy firewood anymore. The women and children at home do not have to inhale the most toxic form of carbon, which is black carbon. Domestic air pollution is a serious problem in the global south and also in India. And then of course, the biodigester also give you 15 tons of biofertilizer every year for free. And all of it can be free, because that's how we've rolled out the 15,000, because it pays back through the carbon markets. So that's the opportunity, whether it is mangroves or biochar or alternate wetting and drying in rice fields or biodigesters or agroforestry. There's all kinds of possibilities. And if you look at the overall bigger carbon market, so if you have 200 million cattle and if you can deploy 50 million biodigesters for that space, each generating 6 carbon credits a year, that is 300 million carbon credits. And even at current prices, it is $6 billion if you can capitalize on that opportunity. But at the right price of carbon, it could be $20 billion or $25 billion. So that's what is the opportunity. How do we make ourselves amenable to that opportunity so that we see it for its potential and then use it to our advantage? Because India is still a low carbon economy. Of course, everybody looks at the total numbers and goes to town complaining. But if you look at India's emissions, as I was talking about earlier, the average per capita is under 3 tons. Whereas if you look at the US or Canada or European Union, a lot of these Western economies, it's anywhere between 5 to 20 tons per capita. And then so we are in a good place. So how do we leverage that while staying on our path to net zero, but then using that opportunity to unlock the power of the carbon markets for people and planet? And so I'll start with asking Mr. Chaudhary, fisheries is a very specific opportunity. So how can government policies and fisheries really aid and abet the coastal fisheries especially, and the coastal economy and the population that lives along that, to get them sustainable livelihoods so that they become partners in the sustainability drive? Over to you.
Thank you. First of all, so I'll give you scenario for the employment creation. What can be possible if we implement our programs and visions for 2036 and 47. So in case of a deep sea fishing mission, what we are trying to prepare, and it is almost in pipeline. So we are targeting that 11 lakh more jobs can be created. Fishing crews, it would be 3.5 lakh. Landing center and harbors, around 3 lakhs. Boat building, gear and logistics, 2 lakhs. Processing and marketing, 2.5 lakh. And then if we include the brackish water operations, it would come around 5 to 6 lakh. Around farmers and farm labor, 3.3 lakh. Hatcheries, 5,000. Feed industry, 40,000. Processing plant, 1.5 lakhs. So this would give us around 17 lakh additional employment. And if you see the CGAR under this sector is around 9.8. That means on investment, this sector is giving high returns. But the question which is posed to me is how to make it sustainable. So there are a lot of things to be done in that sector, even for the claiming the carbon credits. For if we see that agriculture sector where this is prominent, and lots of states and even center is trying to educate the farmers, lot of organization are working there in that sector. But the actual reach, actual process, actual platforms are still not available in the farm level. Farmers, there are like in case of Odisha itself, there are very few farmers who they can claim it. So that system is not in place. We are trying to create employment, policies are there, investors are there, but the ecosystem, the proper ecosystem policy and the SOPs has to be put in place. For the instance, if we see the freshwater pisciculture, in that also, since long we have not analyzed the pisciculture, what we are doing, what is the impact it gives on the ecology. So recently our department has started for the Hirakud, how the ecology is getting impacted through ICM pisciculture, what kind of feed we are using. So yes, this is a long way to go, and we will definitely to take feedback from the academia, from the ICR institution, from the NGOs and other partners to make it sure that these kind of environmental profit and benefits should go to the farmers so that they can take this responsibility to make sure. Otherwise, see, if this entire thing will not give them proper profit, then this kind of exploitation will go on. This happened in case of Green Revolution, White Revolution, and that will be again repeated. So we are working on that, and we will seek the support from all sectors working in that sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think it's very heartening that the government is really looking at sustainability not as a sideshow, but as a mainstream concern, because that's what I was talking about earlier in the day, that once it gets into the mainstream of thinking and planning, then it becomes second nature. And second nature then serves first nature, which is nature itself. If I can invite you, Rituparna ji, for our foreign friends who are in the room, India has something called a CSR law, Corporate Social Responsibility law, where you have to spend 2% of your profits beyond a certain threshold every year for matters that are of public impact, that benefit people, and that's about $3 billion a year. But it's quite fragmented and doesn't really serve a broader cause because most of it is short term. Because of course, every corporate is looking at their own catchment area to see what can I do? Can I run a school? Or can I run a hospital? Or can I have a road? Which is all laudable. There's nothing wrong with it. But actually with that kind of money, you can have significant impact on matters that are of national significance. So since you are someone so knowledgeable about CSR, so I'm throwing that question at you as to what can we do to really harness the power of that with a more long-term perspective. You have a yeah.
Thank you, Shri Satya. So when it comes to CSR, corporate social responsibility, it is the business always thinks from its own business perspectives of where its area of operations or the industry is. As you rightly said, that we are not limited to thinking towards our own direct impact zone where the industry is located or the company is located. It is also pan-India, but again, it is fragmented. But while I talk about CSR as a whole in general, I would like to talk more about our Epsilon Foundation, which is the CSR arm of Epsilon Carbon Private Limited. While we are increasing our base in Odisha, and over the last couple of years, we are trying to increase the efforts put in towards the community development is increasing. We've also partnered with Bhubaneswar City Knowledge Council, and I'd like to request the team to play a video, which would kind of a video which will summarize our efforts in Odisha to begin with, and there are a couple more which I can throw light on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Chilika Lake, India's largest brackish water lagoon and a Ramsar wetland of global importance, is not just an ecosystem. It is a lifeline for thousands of fishing families. But today, this fragile wetland faces a growing threat, the unchecked spread of a weed species called Phragmites curca. As these weeds choke water channels and fish habitats, they are silently eroding livelihoods, especially for the local fishing communities. Its degradation is not just a local issue. It threatens biodiversity, livelihoods, and India's blue economy. Declining fish catch, shrinking open waters, and climate variability have made fishing-based incomes unstable and seasonal. For many households, this means months of unemployment, rising debt, and growing vulnerability. Ironically, the same weed choking Chilika is removed every year as waste without creating any economic value. This project, supported by Epsilon Carbon CSR initiative, reimagines the problem as an opportunity. By converting invasive Phragmites karka into particle boards, paper-based products, and biochar, the initiative creates a powerful waste-to-value livelihood model. Importantly, the technology is already proven and field validated. This CSR support will not be used for research, but to transfer this technology and knowledge directly to communities. At the heart of the project is a community-owned SHG-led enterprise model. A community training and production center in Balugam block will serve as a hub for skill development, pilot production, and enterprise incubation. Over 150 scheduled caste beneficiaries, with minimum 50% women, will be trained in sustainable biomass harvesting, production, quality control, and entrepreneurship. 8 to 10 SHG-led micro-enterprises will manage the entire value chain from collection to market. To ensure long-term sustainability, the project is strongly market-linked. Products will be connected to institutional buyers, eco-retailers, government platforms, and industry partners. With assured offtake and enterprise ownership, livelihoods continue well beyond the CSR funding period. The results are transformative. Households will earn an additional 6,000 rupee to 10,000 rupee per month, creating an annual livelihood value of over 1 crore rupees. Around 12,000 kilograms of biomass will be productively utilized every year, improving water flow, fish habitats, and wetland health. Women will gain leadership, dignity, and economic independence. The project directly advances environment, wetland restoration, livelihoods, SC and women income, and innovation, circular biomass use, aligning to the CSR mandates of Epsilon Carbon. With the support of Government of Odisha and Epsilon Carbon, Chilika can become a national model for circular economy-driven wetland restoration.
Thank you so much. That's a great example.
Just take half a minute.
Sure, please.
Yeah, so it's while corporate CSR is no more writing checks for development, at Epsilon we are identifying our efforts towards the blue economy, not only towards the climate resilience, but also we believe that working hand in hand and thinking that rural employability and climate action goes together. So we are into preventive action more than preemptive action. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just to our speakers, if you're looking at the clock, that's not working really well, so we have time. So please take your time. Jennifer, I want to come to you with a very specific question on resilience of coastal communities, not just resilience of people, but also of ecosystems, of the fish stocks, of everything, because they're all interlinked. So what can we do to create sustainable coastal communities? You know, the power of design, thinking, and sustainability being mainstream into our everyday thought process so that the resilience and sustainability is built into whatever we plan.
Hello. Yeah, so I was thinking about one thing that would be important in sort of integrating and creating this network is, for one, is just raising awareness within the communities of what the opportunities are and what the value is of nature and what can be done. If people don't know what the opportunity is and don't have the awareness, that's sort of ground zero of where to start. And I think that's actually kind of an education campaign, really. And so that's raising awareness. And then also, the other thing I was thinking in terms of blue economy is just the idea of Shraddha, which is, you know, devotion, respect. I think there's a lot of that to do with the blue economy in Orissa. And I think that's something that people can identify with. For example, in Texas, where I'm from, you know, it's kind of, people think of it as this oil and gas place and the place of great lands and ranches and all this stuff and entrepreneurs and frontier and can-do spirit and all this sort of thing. And so it's like a state of mind. And so I think that that state of mind is something that can be captured, for one. And then you have younger people that are being educated, that want to start businesses. And so I think there's a lot of ground up opportunities as well, just from the minds of young people wanting to start businesses, having the ability to do things in the digital economy. You know, from a computer, you can do a lot and then sync up with the opportunity that exists within the community and working with, you know, natural assets and that sort of thing. I mean, I've very much seen it in Texas. You know, increasingly, you know, we're attracting a lot of Silicon Valley types and people that want to do startups in Texas because we're kind of, you know, there's a lot of energy innovation, tech innovation, and a lot of it is harnessing assets of nature really at its base, because that's what provides livelihoods. It's part of our activities, our business activities. And so I think a lot of this is a state of mind, and also something that hit me with all this is, you know, thinking in terms of markets, you know, because you can do top-down planning, but there's also opportunities to identify niche markets, or, you know, have an inspiration for something that's relevant to you, because if it's relevant to you, you're going to focus on it and you're going to see it through and persevere and have the inspiration to do things. So I think that's if I had any advice to anyone thinking about a startup, it's, you know, doing something that you care about, and many people do care about nature. So that's kind of, you know, that's the first step, and then figuring out what you can do, what is in demand, and then how would I go about, you know, supplying that demand? What product, what service? And I just think over time you develop, like, you know, we were talking about an ecosystem of like-minded people kind of pulling the same way for the same goal, which is to advance, you know, this blue economy and harness your resources that you have in this state. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I think, you know, it's a perfect segue to what I'm about to ask Girijaji. It's all in the mind. So, and you know, they say that when your neurons fire together, they wire together. You know, so as people come together as partners, they start, you know, sometimes it's a bridge too far because we don't understand each other's language. Even though we understand each other, we respect each other, but we're speaking language that nobody understands because we're talking from our perspective, not something that the other can relate to. And the more we talk to each other, it all comes together, you know. And then that's the science of neuroplasty. Then everybody thinks along the same lines. But someone has to take the leadership in thinking through that design. And so I'm about to ask Girijaji to dwell a little bit on how do we design these systems, you know, that actually not just speak for sustainability, but result in sustainability at the grassroots. Over to you.
Thank you, sir, for that question. In fact, for design purpose, we need to have good data, and data which should relate and be realistic and give the ground reality. We generate a lot of data from our research, and we provide policy recommendations to several state governments, 9 state governments in India, including Odisha. And data is extremely important. The robustness of the data, the credibility of the data, because in Indian system, we know that data credibility is also extremely questionable many times. So we, with Norwegian support, under the Norwegian Embassy in New Delhi's financial support and collaboration with Norwegian Institute for Water Research, NIVA, we do research like the rivers carrying pollutants, solid liquid waste to the marine ecosystem and how it impacts the marine ecology. You would all be knowing, most of you would be knowing the story of TBT, how TBT painted on the boats had huge impact on the environmental system, the ecology of marine ecosystem. So we are very mindful, and we do from this research, we generate data, and data which is given to the state governments for policy action. So recently we just concluded a research and on Kaveri River and gave the state government what are the pressure points on plastic pollution, emerging contaminants, and they were extremely, it was eye-opening. So these are aspects which we as research community, the academicians, the researchers should bring out so that we are equipped, our governments are equipped with better policy decisions. Because ultimately data transfers into impact assessments, etc., and which transfers into implementation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You
hope
put it so beautifully. Data is the new oil, you know, and you can't manage what you don't measure. And I was so delighted, you know, talking to the Secretary MOES earlier today in our meeting with the Chief Secretary. I was so proud as an Indian, the kind of data. Okay, so sorry about that. So I was quite proud, not so proud anymore. No, sorry, I was trying to be humorous. So the kind of data that the MOES is gathering across the coastline, you know, the weather data or the salinity data or the ecosystem level data, I mean, that could really spur a sustainability revolution across the 8,000 kilometer plus coastline of India. So data is the heart of it. And then, of course, you can use the data for the wrong reasons to make all the wrong arguments. So, you know, garbage in and garbage out just doesn't apply to the data. It also applies to our thought processes. If you are thinking garbage, so we'll use the same data for the wrong reasons. So I think we really need to focus on the right reasons and the right data and the intellectual integrity that goes with rigorous research standards to give the right kind of advice. We have now reached the end of the conversation, but before that, I think the most important thing, are you able to hear me? No? I think this. Okay, keeps coming back and going, sorry. Apologies to Vikramji. I think that's at the heart of what we are talking about. How do you create the right kind of startups? And how do you empower them to produce millions of green jobs by harnessing the power of the carbon markets, where the government really doesn't have to invest money. The government is a very important stakeholder in that process in measuring and managing and supporting the initiatives, but not necessarily putting money into it. So how do we cross that last mile, Vikramji?
Thank you so much. And I think it's very convenient how there was so much focus on data, and I'm going to harp up a little more about the same thing. I basically see three opportunities in terms of using carbon markets, right? And as opposed to maybe speaking something conceptual, I will speak something which is closer to heart. We'll be very happy to partner with BCKIC in one of the blue carbon projects that we're doing right here in the state of Odisha, in Bhitarkarnika Park. And the first opportunity that I see, right, is data, right? It's the live blood that runs into any carbon market. So DMRV or digital monitoring, reporting, verification is at the core of making any ecological asset into a financial asset, right? So whether it's used for policy advocacy or whether it's used for impact measurement, all of those things. And in the way we are using it is, and I mean, open to thoughts from people, we are basically using people on the ground as nature stewards to democratize the collection of the data. In our case, beyond carbon, as I mentioned, right, we are going into nature and biodiversity data, right? So we have acoustic sensors, we have just started environmental DNA correction. So all of these things are things which actually people on the ground help us with. So that's one big incentive that we see in any carbon managed project. And I simply cannot overemphasize on the importance of that. Secondly, co-designing a revenue model where it begins to make sense, where you have the community on the cap table for the impact. And in essence, in any carbon project, more than 50% is what is given to the local communities, and that's another big opportunity, right? So in essence, in addition to what we have in terms of what I already mentioned for carbon markets, the green jobs aspect is also some of what some of my colleagues spoke about, whether in terms of the maintenance of the nurseries or whether in terms of upkeep or maintenance. Last but definitely not the least, one of the key factors which I think was also spoken about in some ways is um, we have private capital, but even with that, we have to work with the governments and philanthropy and some of the other partners that we we're just talking about, right? Because any carbon project has an upfront cost which is very heavy, which is exactly where partnerships like the ones we are talking about with BCKIC, with the Odisha government, with some of our esteemed panel members, is where we get in blended finance or philanthropic capital to help get those projects off the ground and then be able to get returns on that over a longer period of time. So I think we have hit on all the right notes in some senses. This is a summary of what we're talking about.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're ending on a high note. I had promised our amazing anchor that we'll finish at 4 o'clock. So we're finishing right on time. And so thank you to the amazing panelists and thank you audience for your interest and I watched all of you listening in rapt attention. So thank you all very much. A big hand to our panelists, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before we wrap up the session, we all had seen a video on the Waste to Value Livelihood Creation Project by Epsilon in the Chilika wetland ecosystem. There's now time to release the vision document powered by Epsilon Carbon and implemented by BCKIC. So I request the esteemed dignitaries on dais to do it. And I request Dr. Mrutyunjay, Dr. Namrata Mishra from BCKIC to join, along with Professor Vishaka Raina and Dr. Ajit Patnaik. I'll request all of them to please join on stage for the release of the vision document powered by Epsilon Carbon Private Limited, implemented by BCKIC. It is on the waste to value livelihood creation through invasive biomass utilization in the Chilika wetland ecosystem.
That's fine. We don't have. So. No, please. Hold it together. I will hold it with them. Come closer.
A wonderful project indeed. A big round of applause as we release the vision document. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mrutyunjay. Thank you, Dr. Namrata Mishra. Thank you, Professor Vishaka Raina. And thank you, Dr. Ajit Patnaik, for doing the honors. Now I'll request the session chair, Shri Satya Tripathi ji, to felicitate all our panelists, present them a token of appreciation from our side. So I'll request all of them to please step forward. And I'll first request him to present a token of appreciation to Shri Prem Chandra Chaudhary, Commissioner cum Secretary Fisheries and Animal Resources Development Department, Government of Odisha. A big round of applause as we felicitate them. Request him to do that to Mrs. Rituparna De, Head CSR Epsilon Carbon Private Limited. We also saw about the project and the release of the vision document. A token of appreciation to Ms. Jennifer Warren, Founder, Conceptual Elemental USA. To Dr. Girija Bharat, Managing Director, New Kama Consultants Private Limited. And of course, to Shri Vikram Singh, CEO and co-founder, Dharuka Earth. And then we'll, of course, have a group photograph. Thank you. We'll request everyone to please step forward for a group photograph. I believe Shri Prem Chaudhary had a engagement and had to rush back, but we'll have a group photograph with the entire panel. Prem sir is here, so I'll request him to join for the group photograph. I'll request Dr. Namrata Mishra to also join for the group photograph. Thank you so much to everyone for a wonderful session and for taking out time from your schedules for this. We'll now move to our parallel session segment. So I would once again like to inform about it before we start with these sessions. So as informed earlier as well, this is where we are going to have multiple sessions. So there's going to be a session here in the main hall, and a parallel session will take place in the conference hall 1 on the first floor. So it's conference hall 1 on the first floor. So the session being held in the first floor is on blue biotechnology and marine bioresources. It'll be chaired by Professor Subir S. Mazumdar, Director General, Gujarat Biotechnology University. It will have Professor Kuang Kao, Reader, Queen's University, Belfast, UK, Professor Gary Hardiman, Professor, Queen's University, Ireland, Professor Rooplal, Founder, FixGen Private Limited, India, Professor Oleana Karnewali, Professor Diswa, Italy, and Sri Venu Velpuri, CFO, Govt of Andhra Pradesh. So these would be the speakers for the session that will happen in the first floor, which is on blue biotechnology and marine bioresources. So I'll, of course, request the moderator, the session chair, and the speakers for this session to please proceed towards the hall in the first floor. And those speakers who are interested for that particular session will also, the audience, the participants who are requested, who are interested in that session are also requested to proceed towards the conference hall 1 on the first floor. The session that will take place here would be on ocean intelligence, data forecasting, and climate risk. So we'll be starting with that session in the next couple of minutes. Of course, as some of the participants and audience might now move to the first floor, we'll request everybody, those who are left in the main hall, to come closer. And as we get ready for the session on ocean intelligence, data forecasting, and climate risk. So once again, I'll just repeat the session in the first floor. Blue Biotechnology, Marine Bioresources, chaired by Professor Subir S. Mazumdar, Director General, Gujarat Biotechnology University. We'll have Professor Kuang Kao, Reader, Queen's University, Belfast, UK. Professor Gary Hardiman, Professor, Queen's University, Belfast, Ireland. Professor Loop Lal, Founder, FixGen Private Limited, India. Professor Oleana Karnewali, Professor Diswa, Italy. And Sri Venu Velpuri, CFO, Govt of Andhra Pradesh. So these are our speakers for the session in the first floor, conference hall 1. Interested participants can move towards that. And those left for the session on ocean intelligence, data forecasting, and climate risk, I'll request the audience now to come closer. Those at the back, if I may request everyone, now you can come closer, because from here on, there are parallel sessions. There's one more session left, which will also be running parallelly. So the last session, we'll have the faculty and student thing happening in the first floor. It's a faculty and student innovation presentation. And in the main hall, we'll have the ecosystem approach towards sustainable blue economy session. College, London, and Dr. Avinash Mohanty, Global Sector Head, Climate Change and Sustainability, IPE Global Limited. As our panelists settle down, allow me to briefly introduce them. Our session chair, Dr. Aurobindo Mitra, is a former scientific secretary in the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. Over the course of his career, has played a significant role in shaping national science and technology missions and fostering international scientific collaboration. With deep expertise in science policy and innovation ecosystem, he has been instrumental in building research partnership between India and leading global institutions. His work continues to influence strategic initiative at the intersection of science, governance, and innovation-led development. We have Dr. Madhan R., a chief scientist at the CSIR National Institute of Oceanography, one of India's premier research institution dedicated to ocean science. He has been closely involved in the development of advanced marine robotics and underwater observation technologies. His work includes the design and deployment of autonomous underwater vehicles and deep sea exploration systems that support oceanographic research, seabed mapping, and marine ecosystem monitoring. We have Professor Montserrat Solé, a senior researcher at the Institute of Marine Sciences in Spain, an internationally recognized expert in marine ecotoxicology. Her research focuses on the impact of pollutants on marine organism and ecosystem. She has contributed extensively to understanding how chemical stresses and environmental changes affect marine biodiversity, and her work plays an important role in shaping global approaches to ocean conservation and environmental monitoring. We have Dr. Subhanjoy Mohanty, an associate professor at Imperial College, London, with research expertise in astrophysics and planetary science. His work focuses on the formation and evolution of stars and planetary system using advanced modeling techniques and observational data. A former NASA Spitzer Fellow, he has contributed significantly to our understanding of planetary system and the conditions that influence planetary habitability. We have Dr. Avinash Mohanty, the Global Sector Head for Climate Change and Sustainability at IPE Global Limited. He is widely recognized for his work in climate risk assessment, resilience planning, and sustainability strategy. Over the years, he has advised government, development agencies, and international institutions on climate adaptation, sustainable infrastructure, and environmental policy framework. So I'll now request Dr. Aurobindo Mitra to deliver the leadership talk and kindly take the session forward from here. Let's welcome all of them with a warm round of applause.
Thank you indeed. Very good afternoon to all of you. It's always a challenge to be awake in the afternoon sessions, but I must also thank the cameraman once in a while focusing us there to keep us awake. And I hope you'll do that while this session goes on. Let me first honestly express my thanks to BCKIC. This is always a homecoming for me. I think I do take a little bit of credit in the very establishment of BCKIC when I was in the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor. It's a great pleasure for me to see today how this center in Bhubaneswar is flowering, rather blossoming, in looking at very important domains, which is very critical for the socioeconomic and environmental development of the country. I have an erudite group of panelists who will do the Q&A after I've spoken, but let me briefly allude to what India actually needs to do in terms of the whole aspect of this data collection and data collation and data assimilation for the blue economy. For all of you would be knowing, the ocean since immemorial has influenced the life of man and shaped the destiny of nations. And I would always say, who other than India is in a better position to understand the oceans as foretold in our ancient texts. And I quote, "O ocean, you are the storehouse of the 14 gems. There is no end to your riches. Your greatness is indeed unfathomable." But truly we are saying that this statement is getting challenged because of the climate change and environmental issues. For Bharat, ocean represents a strategic national asset. India has a coastline. In fact, the correct coastline is 11,098 kilometers. This has been recently revised by the Survey of India using satellite technology. It's no more 7,500. an exclusive economic zone of 2.37 million square kilometers, and the continental shelf of 0.53 million square kilometer, placing it amongst the top potential maritime nations globally. The marine sector contribution to India's GDP is less than 4% through various shipping, fisheries, coastal farming, and is still under par the potential. Recognizing this, just to recollect, the Government of India has launched major national initiatives like the Guiding Blue Economy Strategy, based upon which the policy is getting framed, the Deep Ocean Mission, steered by the Ministry of Earth Sciences, with an allocation of 4,000 crore odd, the Sagarmala project, which is actually the connectivity of the ports around the eastern and western flank of India, and the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, which is the Fisheries Yojana, with an allocation of 20,050 crores. And the recent one is the Shipbuilding and Maritime Ecosystem Development Fund of 69,727 crore. Thereby positioning oceans as a core pillar of Atmanirbhar Bharat, climate resilience, and strategic technology leadership. At the regional level, I would also like to recollect, we have what we call the acronym SAGAR, Security and Growth for All in the Region, is India's strategic vision in the Indian Ocean region, launched in 2015 to promote maritime cooperation, enhance security and economic growth with the maritime neighbors in the Indian Ocean region, and ensure safe lanes and offer humanitarian aid whenever called for. But I always believe that to make India as an exemplary steward of its ocean heritage, there is a need for a coherent, integrated, fair, and scientific knowledge-based approach. In managing the economic development of our oceans, it is imperative that in order to empower the nation and secure its interests as a blue water economy, we have to considerably improve the scientific understanding of the surrounding oceans. And this is what exactly this panel is going to discuss upon. Productivity matters for the sustainable ocean economy. Increasing access to real-time ocean data for planning better shipping rules, optimizing the fuel use, estimation of potential fishing zones, and reducing harmful bycatch, etc., all requires advanced ocean modeling studies, which could also locate better renewable energy sites for the wind, for the solar, for the thermal, and the tidal energy, regenerative energy that we are targeting at. These are the kind of productivity gains that we can make to help the ocean economy stay resilient and sustainable by increasing the efficiency with which inputs are transferred into real outputs. Unraveling the potential of the maritime sector in the economic growth of India would entail targeted capacity building in several defining aspects of science and technology. Ocean state forecast will be fundamental to improve the science in understanding the interrelated dynamics, processes involving the land-ocean atmosphere coupling, which is increasingly being influenced by the climate change and global warming. One of the very important aspects today for the ability to forecast and predict the monsoon system, storm charges, disaster warnings, potential fishing zones, and other nearshore geohydrological processes like sea level rise, biogeochemical flux, etc., will enable us to develop an integrated and viable coastal economic development plan and maritime infrastructure, which is vital for sustainable economic growth of India. The core intent, therefore, will be to establish a cost-effective and integrated marine observational system to provide real-time, accessible, and affordable ocean information and advisory services. This, in turn, will fuel value-based service industry supported through mid-sized ocean enterprises. For serving economic needs, the ocean observation system should yield value-based data set and have strong dissemination and service links for citizenry usage through digital public infrastructure. This is going to be very important Today, India is poised as a country that adopts AI for public good, that can be operationalized into repeatable and scalable systems. We have already demonstrated the power of a robust digital public infrastructure. We have the know-how, and it's time now to extend the same system thinking into establishing a marine digital platform integrated with AI tools in order to build algorithms for efficient decision support systems required for various facets of ocean governance and policy making. The ongoing national effort to build AI stack is aimed to develop trusted data sets and reusable AI tools. Towards this effort, marine data stack platforms should be designed to meet the needs of challenges of various ongoing missions and projects at subnational, national, and international levels. This will empower and enable us to adopt sustainable and scientific practices for the marine sector, which is required towards the growth of a veritable blue water economy while helping to conserve sustainability use and restore the marine ecosystems. Particularly, one important thing is we have to leverage the prowess of Indian space science and technology with real-time and temporal data collected from a host of Earth and ocean observation satellites, which India has today, and integrate it with the navigation and communication tools for effectively using creating a vertical and horizontal value chain for resilient socio-economic development. Looking forward to 2050, the ocean economy faces complex challenges that will shape its trajectory. Climate change and global energy transition, geopolitical tensions, and shifting demographies are but a few examples. Economic modeling recently done by OECD suggests that these shaping forces are likely to impede the growth of potential of the ocean economy. In fact, there is a downward trend of the ocean economy output as studied by OECD recently. Underpinning the blue water economy, the need for the rapid development of marine technology that can provide us the cutting-edge tool for surface and subsurface ocean observation, survey and exploration and exploitation of marine resources, and safeguard the maritime and coastal assets of India for harboring productive economic activity is very, very important. This will culminate into a new market segment of innovative maritime products and support services enabled by nurturing a vibrant marine technology ecosystem based on science and research-led deep tech startups. And you did see some of these startups. I think it's high time that India should set up an exclusive marine incubation and innovation center that should focus on developing marine technology based on scientific evidences and scientific data that we collect. And finally, I think in order to secure the recognition of the economic and political interests of India, both under the regional and international framework, the continuum of the oceans beyond the EEZ has to be systematically pursued under the one ocean concept. This can be realized through an effective presence in the international waters of the Indian Ocean, through an enabling collaborative strategy with maritime countries in the Indian Ocean region, based on our scientific strength and capabilities. Implied in this strategy is the need for technology capacity building and creation of an effective data-driven digital structure for mutual and trusted need-based assistance and for other Indian Ocean countries. Finally, to conclude, I again emphasize on the fact that India has to develop a maritime governance model which is both inclusive and equitable. It has to be anchored on well-informed principles of scientific knowledge, which is cross-sectoral and holistic, addressing the triage of social, economic, and environmental aspects. India's actions have to be accountable and transparent, adhering to the Sustainable Development Goals to which we are committed as a nation. In order to fuel the present and future economic growth, we therefore need to build a pragmatic and resilient marine governance model for India, anchored on scientific prowess and technological innovation. So this is going to be critical for India to build a sustainable blue economy. today I think we'll discuss this importance of scientific data, the importance of research and innovation, the importance of modeling. I have a very erudite panel with me. Some of them are observational scientists, and some of them are people who have worked on modeling and its connection with the economics and the techno-economic feasibility of various technologies. So with this, I will start the panel discussion, and we'll give some time to each of the panelists. I think they should be having at least 10 minutes each of them, but I'll break in questions to make the session more coherent. So I'll just move over there to take the panel. I hope I'm audible. Let me begin with the gentleman immediately to my left, Mr. Madan, who is actually a marine technologist working in India's premier institute, the National Institute of Oceanography, based out of Goa. And I have been following his work very closely. And Madan is working on some incredible large missions, both for the near coast and deep ocean technologies. Currently, I believe he's involved in designing a 2,000-meter deep ROV, and also has actually successfully commercialized several technologies, one of which I'm aware of studying the corals using the cobalt technology. So my question to you, Madan, could you just throw light on some of these new technologies that India is working on for both nearshore and deep oceans for actually measuring the oceanic parameters?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Mitra. So, of course, before coming to what India has developed, what we have developed, I think it is also important to know, if you look into the past, I think there's a very good roadmap for ocean data acquisition. It started a long time ago with a global ocean observing system network, the GOOSE, then the WOS, World Ocean Circulation Experiment, where we actually get the conveyor belt of currents. And that was on a global scale. But I think we also had some of them for our waters, the Bay of Bengal. There was a very interesting study on the Bay of Bengal monsoon interaction experiment, BobMax. And of course, flux studies, JAGOFs, which I think all the oceanographic communities from the world were involved. So how do we look at oceanographic data? So you look at surface data, and I think that's the simplest to get today, because you don't have to go to the seas. You can get a lot from the satellite data. But of course, if you look at the euphotic zone, satellite data gives you maybe up to 20, 25 meters or 30 meters, and still you have euphotic zone down. So if you're going to have instrumentation there, it's going to be very challenging, because I think one of the biggest challenges for getting data from the seas is it's expensive. You have to use a ship, and if you're going to leave your systems there, you're going to be faced with biofouling, corrosion because of the environment. That's in the euphotic zone. So you look at the surface waters, then you start going to depth. So if I look at coastal waters from high tide line to 200 meters water depth, we can take that as one of the areas. So one of the areas where India has now focused a lot is technologies for coastal waters. And that is very important, especially if you take the processes which are happening, not only in the Bay of Bengal side, even in the Arabian Sea. The upwelling, which is an annual phenomena which happens along the west coast of India, where you get nutrient-rich, low oxygen waters from the deep replacing the surface waters just before the monsoon. So these are some of indications of change in this will definitely be linked to climate change processes. So it's important to look at this area, and these need shallow water systems. They can be either moorings, which can be left there for many days, surface moorings, which are going up to depth. They can be in ways of profilers, and we have in fact patented and developed a profiler which is transferred to a commercial unit, and they are now selling this. And very interesting applications right from BARC for radiation monitoring. So these are very point specific. And then if you want to map large areas, you have AUVs. So we have also developed one of the first AUVs in India, and that is capable of 200 meters depth. And you spoke about the coral reef monitoring robot, again a 200-meter depth capable, but mainly to map corals and coral specific areas. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, this is very interesting to, to actually first to look at the coastal waters and then going into the deep ocean. Of course, the deep ocean mission has several new technologies that are getting developed and would be deployed, including a 6,000-meter deep manned submersible, which India is currently working on and would be launched very quickly. I think Secretary MOES could be better throw light on that. These type of technologies and instruments and these platforms are very, very important and critical. Moving to Montserrat, you've been part of the Spanish Marine Institute, and you've been part of course, Europe's Marine Strategy Framework Directive, MSFD, which has a very strong marine data framework, I understand. So what are the key lessons that you have learned from that, which you think India could adapt while working in the coastal waters, both on the eastern and western flank in the Bay of Bengal, as well as in the Arabian Sea?
Okay. Okay, thank you for the opportunity to present our contribution within the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, which is a European policy that it was started in 2008, and it's aimed to obtain a good environmental status. So I believe what it is good for the Mediterranean would be also good for your seas. First thing, before we protect, we have to know. We have to obtain data to know what's going on. For instance, the Marine Strategy Framework Directive contains 11 descriptors. I'm not going to mention all of them, but I'm going to mention the ones we are more involved, like is number 3, which is aimed to obtain data on the actual situation of fisheries. To regulate fisheries, you have to know what are the species and their abundance in your seas. Another descriptor refers to biological effects of chemicals. So not only we have to know the chemicals present in the environment, but we have to know if these chemicals make any harm to the organisms that live there. So our contribution is not only doing the chemical analysis, but also using early warning biomarkers to indicate that there has been an exposure and the animals are affected. Another descriptor that we contribute is number 9, which refers to the presence of emerging contaminants and also legacy contaminants into seafood. So we focus especially in shrimps and fish and bivalves that humans consume. Another descriptor in which one we contribute is number 10, that refers to marine litter. And marine litter is interesting because we work in close hand in hand with fishermen. For instance, this descriptor of marine litter receives the help of fishermen because when they go to fish, they also collect the rubbish they encounter. And when they don't drop it again into the sea, they bring it to the coast. They bring it to land. And then they put in special containers, we weight it, and we measure somehow their contribution to cleaning the oceans. Also, the sentinel species for this descriptor is the sea turtles. In the Mediterranean is Caretta caretta. And we measure together with fishermen when they encounter the sea turtles into their nets, and these sea turtles cannot go back into the sea because they have suffered some anoxia, for instance, they call the recovery centers. Recovery centers go to fetch them, try to spend some days into this center until they are able to return to the natural environment. So this is also done in close collaboration with fishermen, and they receive a sort of, not a prize, but they receive the recognition for their contribution. And at the same time, recovery centers give us a little bit of blood because they do tests to see if the animals are in good health. And out of this blood, we measure biomarkers to see if they have been exposed to plastics.
Sure.
And I think that's...
Yeah, so this is very interesting, your work on ecotoxicology. It signifies the fact that it not only has implication on the health of the ocean, but it also has implication on the health of human beings, which is actually consuming, the products from the ocean. These are very critical, in fact, factors that need to be kept in mind as we plan the expansion of our fishing potentials, both in the near shore and the mesopelagic region or the deep oceans. So moving to Suvanjoy, he's got amazing background. He's actually an astrophysicist who has worked on exoplanet atmosphere evolution. And in the morning, you heard one of our speakers talking about that the 50% of the oxygen generated on the planet Earth that we breathe comes from the ocean. So the evolution of the atmosphere in any planet system and its change is very, very critical. And I think it brings into the interdisciplinarity of science that is required to understand these complex processes on which Suvanjoy is working on. And also it throws light on the atmosphere-ocean land interaction processes. They are pretty complicated stuff. I would like to know from you, Suvanjoy, what is the type of R&D framework that we need to build to develop and understand and study this type of data collection, its collation, its analysis, and then its implications on things like, sea level rise or the cyclone generation, or for that matter, even the generation of oxygen that was talked about in the morning. Over to you, Suvanjoy.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes, you can. Thank you, Dr. Mitra, and a good afternoon to you all. I want to, I think, focus a little bit in that area on the actual climate change that we are focusing here. The interactions between the atmosphere and the ocean and the surface are all very complicated. However, the point is that we understand them on the Earth fairly precisely at the moment to know in outline what kind of climate change we are actually facing. Okay? And so I would like to focus a little bit more on the risk side here of things, right? We have heard a lot about the opportunities from blue carbon, blue economy, etc. But I want to focus a little bit on the risks in the sense that in 2025, we have already passed 1.5 Celsius, okay? From the perspective of a climate scientist, it appears inevitable that 2 degrees Celsius will be passed sometime approximately around 2050 or so, give or take, okay? There's a scientific fact, okay, which we cannot ignore. A lot of the discussion today about carbon resilience or climate resilience is focused on being resilient to what the climate is doing right now, okay? But the operative word in climate change is change, okay? And we're rapidly accelerating in climate change. And therefore, when we want to talk about climate resilience and what kind of R&D we need, what kind of data we need, it really must be focused on not what is happening right now, but the changes we expect in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, because I can promise you, as somebody who does not just the climate of the Earth, but of other planets, that, well, we as humans tend to think of climate as something that is constant, that changes over very long timescales, okay? But once climates start to reach a tipping point, they move very, very rapidly, as I'm sure you will agree, right? And so those kinds of timescales become smaller than a human timescale, right? So tipping points arrived at inside 10 years, 20 years, and we have already crossed a lot of tipping points, and we are on the verge of crossing some more, right? So we really need to be focusing in terms of collecting data, R&D, and so forth, not just as a scientific blue sky exercise, but the fact that all of you sitting in the audience here are going to see a qualitative change in your life in the next 5 years or 10 years. Okay, so really the thing we should be focusing on is rapid collection of data, not to understand climate change overall. We understand the climate change that is coming, but to understand the impact of that climate change on the ecosystems that we are in, be it a mangrove ecosystem, an agricultural ecosystem, all of these ecosystems that we have around. That we have heard already from a lot of organizations are involved in. We are involved in, we have just started a new initiative called the Center for Climate Impact Adaptation. You will hear about it later, where we're operating inside BCKIC, starting out in the Bhitarakonika region, where we want to understand the impact of climate change on the ecosystems. But what is the main impediment to that? In order to understand those kinds of impacts on ecosystems, the ecological science exists already, okay? There have been huge advances in ecological science in the last few years, which really help us understand the relationship quantitatively between biodiversity, ecosystem function, carbon capture, and all of that. The main impediment is data. And that is not a collection of data. Many different organizations are collecting data, but it is the siloing of data. Okay, there are many different government organizations, ministries that have this data, but integrating that data, allowing access to that data in sufficient quantities from different places so that we can make the sum or the whole greater than the sum of its parts. That is the challenge right now, right? How do we get enough data from all these siloed quarters to actually advance on what the impact on ecosystems is and how to handle it?
Great. Yeah, and that's why I alluded to the fact that we need to create a digital, marine data stack. And most of this data, by the way, is being collected using public fund. And therefore, every citizen has the right to get access to this data and use it in a fashion that is going to benefit, the entire socioeconomic and environmental, protection of the country. Moving to Avinash, he works in an area of hyperclimate risk modeling. And this is something very interesting because, climate itself is a very dynamic process and very rapidly changing. And this type of risk modeling is very, very critical as we plan something like a blue economy roadmap for India. So in that context, Avinash, I just wanted to get some idea from you, what policy and governance framework that are needed to integrate this intelligence into blue economy planning, boosting resilience of the coastal community and the overall marine ecosystem. So your thoughts and views would be very helpful.
Thank you. Well, before we start, since we are sitting here, we need to first start with being Jai Jagannath. Well, the question that you asked, probably Subbu kind of touched upon it a little bit. Montserrat also spoke about it briefly, but let me just break down numbers into perspective. Now, what we do is a lot of hypergranular risk assessments. And what do you mean by hypergranular risk assessment is almost 70% of Indian districts are extreme event hotspots. But when it comes down to coastal districts in India, it is somewhere around 85%. That's where every 10 out of 8 out of 10 kind of districts are extreme event hotspots. And then the number of people residing within this technical within this fringe areas is very, very critical. Now, the data challenge that you spoke about, with the climate risk data that we are talking about, these phenomena are interlinked. Anything happening on the land is actually intrinsic to the oceans, and that's how, because a depression which has been formed is basically a resultant of the heat that has been generated in the land. And as a result, what has happened in climate change, what it has been doing is this heat from the land has been complexating with the heat of the ocean, the marine heat waves. As a result, there is a heat trap which has been formulated, and hence depressions are becoming deep depressions. Deep depressions are getting converted into cyclonic storms into severe cyclonic storms, so on and so forth, at a larger scale. And that's where it is becoming critical. But if you come down to data, I am of the firm belief that a lot of these data is already available. What is not available is what you rightly spoke about, creating a digital marine data stack, is where all of these data which are lying silos somewhere or the other needs to be combined together. Now, first part is getting the data, but also using the data. A heat outside, 45 degree outside or 40 degree outside this auditorium is going to have a different implication on you, on me, on some of the audience, let alone the vendors, street vendors, the rickshaw pullers, so on and so forth. And that's where the gig workers, that's where the real kind of crux comes in, especially when you talk about blue economy, because we are not talking about one particular sector. We are going to talk about major sectors, major kind of jobs which have been generated. If you believe, some of these studies have already highlighted this thing, which is largely around, there are 20 million jobs which can be created because of just mainstreaming blue economy. But at the same time, this 20 million jobs also have the risk of climate change coming together. So either you delete in silo or you integrate all of these information rather than converting it into a panic mode that climate change is going to impact. It is also creating a lot of opportunities, to be very precise. And that's where you spoke about a policy framework. So the right kind of policy framework that is required is a SFT model. Systems which tells you about what are the prudent policies, action plans, and others. If you have a right kind of system in place, that will link it into technology. And for technology and system in place, you need money. That's where finance need to be there. And all of these issues can't be dealt in kind of a blanket cover. Okay, you have to climate proof the whole larger marine sector. No, it can't be done. Rather than that, you need to understand which are those particular communities, particular districts, particular wards, particular villages, which are going to be dependent on blue economy, where a system is required, where right kind of technology in terms of data collection, so on and so forth is required, and what kind of money is required. It can't be a blanket cover. You need to break it down. The more you break it down, the better results. And that's where the action that has been formulated for SEMA in BCKIC is going to be very pivotal, because we are going to look at extreme hypergranular at an ecosystem level that generates data, but also complements the socioeconomic information in order to climate-proof communities, but by large, climate-proof the ecosystems, which the services which we can't be ignoring any further.
Excellent insights. Avinash, this is very important at a time when India is still working to develop its blue economy policy. These inputs will be very, very critical. And I hope the inputs from these discussions will actually go to the government while this policy is under preparation. So I think we have actually just run out of time, but, just to, for the panelists to do justice with them, just 1 or 2 minutes each of you, what is the important message that you would like to give, as a part of this exercise that we are doing on this topic of panel discussion that we are deliberating on today? Maybe Shubhanjoy, just a quick couple of minutes, your main message,
I think the main message that I would like to have is just two things.
Yeah, I think this mic is off.
Hello? Yes. So I think the main things I'd like to say are twofold. One is that we must really focus on understanding what the effects on ecosystems at a hyper-granular sort of level is of climate change over the next short to medium term. The next thing we must really keep in mind when we're talking about blue economy and resilience and all the rest of it is that we are not the people who are going to make resilient ecosystems. It's the farmers, it's the fishermen, it's the local stakeholders. And we have to make sure that the benefits of all this economic growth we are talking about go back to them. If it does not go back to them, it doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell of surviving, okay? And we depend on those people, okay? If they are not able to do the right thing, we won't survive. They might survive, right? So it really is about making sure that the benefits of all of this go back to the people who are doing really the hard work, literally on the ground.
Right. So, Montserrat.
Okay, my contribution is perfectly on the line that you just have started to point out. I would like just to use these 2 minutes on a sort of example of success of co-management with fishermen, with local fishermen, and the government of Catalonia and our institute. In fact, we act only as researchers and try to make an agreement between both bodies. And for instance, the European legislation was basing their decisions on how many days, when can they fish, based on data from the North Atlantic. So Atlantic fisheries that have nothing to do with Mediterranean ones. So the fact that we are providing data, real data, together with the local fishermen to this governmental body allow to modify the decisions taken in Europe towards the Mediterranean fisheries from our region, and let's say now fishermen find their job much more compatible to make a living out of it, and they are happy with the researchers, so we have a very easy dialogue with them. They also are very keen to use nets that are more selective towards the small fish, so the recoveries of the populations are much visible. They allow to use marine protected areas in their fishing grounds, so this has benefit everybody.
Right. So the message I get from both of you is that people and partnership. This is very critical while we plan any research activity that we do to make our work more relevant and what the Prime Minister calls science for ease of living is very critical, for us in future. Finally, to you, Madan, your last message.
Yeah, so I would talk about it from the blue economy point of view. I think there is a big opportunity for innovative technology, especially for data acquisition, smart data acquisition, quick data acquisition, and also the scope of AI tools coming into these technologies for inferences and getting good quality data. I think that's the big thing. It's going to be a place where I think government should look at funding deep tech in ocean technology. Anything which goes into the ocean is really expensive, and I think government should look at bigger funding opportunities for technology startups in the ocean tech.
Yeah. And I think to complement it, it's also important the government should look at policies to support the startup ecosystem in the marine sector, as we have done in space, IT, health, where we have tremendously grown because our startups have done wonders, in fact, at much less the cost and at much less time as well. I think there is a great opportunity, and I think one of the messages that should go out from this meeting is to provide an ecosystem that nurtures marine science and technology startup, based, of course, on the deep science that our researchers and scientists would be conducting. So with that, I'll close the session here. Thank you very much to my erudite panelists who gave different perspectives on the whole issue, and also to the audience for their patient hearing. Thank you, and once again.
Thank you so much for this wonderful discussion. I'll, of course, now request our session chair, Dr. Aurobindo Mitra ji, to kindly present tokens of appreciation to our panelists. So I'll request him to first present one to Mr. Madhan, our Chief Scientist, CSIR, National Institute of Oceanography. Would request him to present one to Professor Montserrat Soler, Institute of Marine Science, Spain. To Dr. Subhanjoy Mohanty, Associate Professor, Imperial College, London. And to Dr. Avinash Mohanty, Global Sector Head, Climate Change and Sustainability, IP Global Limited. I'll of course request Dr. Mrityunjay is here. I'll request him to present a token of appreciation to our session chair, Dr. Aurobindo Mitra. And we'll have a group photograph. Ladies and gentlemen, after that, we'll quickly move to our last session for the day. And then, of course, break for tea and networking and expo visit. Just to inform you, in the first floor, we'll have the session on faculty and student innovation presentations shared by Dr. Bhavik Shone. So that goes on in the first floor, but we will be starting with our next session, which is on ecosystem approach towards sustainable blue economy. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for a wonderful session. So we'll just quickly set the stage and move to our next session, which is ecosystem approach towards sustainable blue economy. As we set the stage, I'll take this time to introduce our session chair and our panelists so that we are saving time. Our session chair is Professor Simrat Pawar, Professor, Imperial College, London. For panelists, we have with us Dr. Sunita Pangla, Associate Professor, Imperial College, London. Dr. Will Pearce, Associate Professor, Imperial College, London. Dr. Manoranjan Hota, former advisor, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Govt of India. And we'll also have with us Dr. Ajit Patnaik, Senior Advisor, World Bank. So these are the panelists for our session. While we are getting the stage set, I'll like to take this opportunity to briefly talk about them and introduce them. Professor Simrat Pawar is a professor of theoretical ecology at Imperial College, London. His research focuses on understanding the dynamics of complex ecological system and how environmental changes influence biodiversity and ecosystem stability. By combining mathematical modeling with ecological data, his work aims to develop predictive tools that can inform environmental conservation and sustainable resource management. Dr. Sunita Pangla is a Royal Society Research Fellow and a senior lecturer at Imperial College, London. Her research focuses on the role of forest and wetland in the global carbon cycle. She has conducted extensive field research in tropical ecosystems such as the Amazon and Borneo, examining methane emissions and the role of vegetation in climate regulation. We have Dr. Will Pearce, an associate professor in evolutionary ecology at Imperial College, London. His work integrates ecological data with evolutionary biology to better understand biodiversity patterns and ecosystem resilience. He also develops computational tools and statistical models that help scientists and policymakers anticipate environmental changes and biodiversity loss. We have Dr. Manoranjan Hota, a former advisor to the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Govt of India. During his tenure, he played a significant role in shaping national environment policies and regulatory frameworks, has represented India in several international environmental conventions, and has extensive experience in environmental governance and policy development. We have already been introduced to Dr. Ajit Patnaik, Senior Advisor, World Bank, in our former session. So I'll straight away now request Professor Simrat Pawar to kindly lead the discussion.
Hello, everybody. It is the last session, so hang in there. If you're taking a nap under the table, now is the time to come out. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you to the BCKIC team, Professor Suar, and so nice to be back in beautiful Odisha and Bhubaneswar. In the last session, inevitably, I feel the discussion gravitated towards ecosystems. So in a sense, we are well set up to think about and round it off today we're thinking about what ecosystems mean, what are the challenges in the path of integrating ecosystems, both natural and not so natural, into the blue economy. So I just want to open with some thoughts on this, and then open it up to some, maybe ask some slightly provocative questions and get some discussion going. So when we talk about the economy, we often think about industries, and we heard about it in the morning, in the afternoon sessions: fisheries, sports, shipping, aquaculture, tourism. But the real foundation of the blue economy is something much older and much more fundamental, and these are ecosystems. So here in Odisha, for example, the relationship between ecosystems and economy is very visible, very tangible. So many of us, or rather many of you, remember the devastating cyclones that have hit the coast over the years. What is less widely appreciated, maybe, is how ecosystems, especially mangrove forests, like in the Bhitarkanika conservation area, play a critical role in reducing storm impacts. But not just that, but they're also protecting coastal communities and their livelihoods on the longer term, sustaining fisheries, and also providing wider ecosystem services that are not that tangible, like, for example, grass. So these ecosystems are not just beautiful landscapes, they are natural infrastructure. And I want to emphasize that. They are natural infrastructure and ancient infrastructures in many cases. So mangroves, wetlands, estuaries, rivers, and coastal forests, they regulate carbon, support fisheries, filter water, and protect coastlines. So in many ways, they are the living systems that make the blue economy possible to start with. So despite this, and here's the thing that I really wanted to bring up, is that ecosystems are still very rarely systematically integrated into economic planning or developmental decisions. So restoration efforts, for example, are increasingly common worldwide, including in the Bhitarkanika area and along the Odisha and Andhra coastline, for example. Restoration is not just locally, they are increasing worldwide. But they are often fragmented. And the outcomes, whether for biodiversity, climate, or livelihoods, can be difficult to predict. So the question before us today, and I want to pose first, not yet to the panel, but to everybody, is not just how to protect ecosystems, but how to make them central to the blue economy. So I want to open with a question to the panel, then I'm going to go sit there and be comfortable, and hopefully provoke more discussion and provide and guide it, hopefully. So from your perspective, what is the biggest challenge in integrating ecosystems into blue economy initiatives, whether it's restoration, coastal management, or climate finance, or beyond? So let's get these brief perspectives to start with from each of our panelists, and let's then see where the discussion goes. Sunita, you want to start?
Yes, I think. Thanks, Samrat. I'm going to give a very different perspective, I guess. I'll be talking about a risk and then a couple of opportunities. So we did hear a lot about mangrove ecosystem today, and then there was a brief discussion about climate financing, especially looking at the carbon credit perspective for mangrove ecosystem. So when you think about mangrove ecosystem, they're kind of a small but mighty ecosystem. So they only take up like 0.5% of the land surface area, but then they store about 3 times the carbon that other kinds of forests would store. So they're not trivial. But vast majority of this carbon is locked away in the soil. So the reason being, it's really wet. There's quite a lot of water kind of coming in and out, and as a result of that, the carbon kind of gets locked away quite slowly, but it stays there for a very long period of time. Given I work on methane, I'm going to put a methane spin on it. So the minute you've got carbon, it's a really good ecosystem because it's warm, it's wet, and you've got plenty of food for these microbes. What happens next is it produces a lot of methane. And traditionally, what people did was they just looked at the surface. And in a mangrove ecosystem, the surface is just the water body. So when you measure emissions from this water body, you often don't see a lot of methane being released. So all the carbon credit system that comes from a mangrove ecosystem, they just simply assume that there's zero methane emissions from this ecosystem. And then a carbon credit has been formed, which is great because for Odisha, we've got about 250 kilometers square of mangrove area. And for that alone, you've got about 10 million tons of carbon being locked away. So this is not trivial. It's quite significant. And if you were to look at a carbon credit system, even if I go with the lowest credit, it's about 50 tons per carbon, you're thinking about 500 million US dollars. So that's a good sum. But then if you were to put in the methane spin on it, you've got trees in mangrove ecosystems. And we now know that these trees simply don't sit there. They act as a chimney. So whatever's in the ecosystem, in the soil, they get pumped, channeled, and it's being released into the atmosphere. So some of this carbon, which we take it for granted that it's locked away in the mangrove ecosystem, is actually being lost. So do we account for this? Or do we do hush-hush because it's good? But then there's an opportunity element to this as well. So we now know that trees do channel out methane and it's being released into the atmosphere. Can we do something with that information? Not all trees behave the same way. Some are a bigger pump and the other ones don't release that much amount of methane. So could we then focus our restoration efforts using those kind of species? And I think we need to channel the information that we have got into those avenues. And the other opportunities which I really take pride to discuss here is, you think about trees, you think about mangroves, you've got all these surfaces, the branches, the leaves, the stems, and they are breeding grounds for microbes. And these microbes, what they are quietly doing is absorbing the dangerous greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. And again, I'm talking about methane. They are 30 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And what these mangroves are doing is quietly just absorbing methane from the atmosphere, and that is also not being accounted for. So just based off our research that we have done elsewhere in other ecosystems, we know that these trees absorb about 25% equivalent of carbon. So if you were to add that into your equation, simply by doing nothing, just restoring your mangrove ecosystem, you're increasing your carbon credit from $500 million to $600 million. And I think that's something that I want to put it out there for you to consider.
Thank you very much. So you ask what's holding us back from integrating the natural system into the economic system. And I've worked a little bit trying to think about how we can integrate financial markets in with biodiversity. And there is something I've noticed, and that is that everybody has this intuitive feeling for what a nice ecosystem looks like. It's something you go for a nice walk through it, and you can hear the birds, and it would be a nice place to have a picnic, okay? But when you actually ask someone to put a number on it, they go, I don't know, okay? And it is really hard to measure whether or not you've got a good amount of biodiversity in an area or whether you've got a bad amount of biodiversity in an area. And a lot of people thought, that's just these tree-hugging academics. I'm a tree-hugging academic, okay? I can be mean about myself. They don't know what they're doing, so we're going to go out there and we're going to properly measure everything. So the Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosures, TNFD, said, don't worry, we work in finance and economics. We're going to solve all of this. We're going to find one way of measuring whether biodiversity is good. Do you know what they came up with? 14 different ways of measuring biodiversity that you have to do, 2 ways of measuring biodiversity that you really ought to do, and then depending on where you are and what your purpose is, a suite of other metrics. So it is really hard to, and by the way, I think the TNFD did a really good job, okay? Just getting it down to 14 plus 2 plus something else, very good, okay? So the truth is, what is holding us back right now is that in financial systems, and let's be honest, finance is what gets everybody up in the morning, what gets economies moving, it's what keeps people healthy, okay? The financial system and the biodiversity, the natural science system, are speaking different languages. And until we can find a way of connecting those two things, we can't credit biodiversity and we can't credit the work that nature is doing to support our economies. So I think that's what's holding it back, a good way of comparing a language, a common metric that we can use.
Thank you. What are the challenges? This itself is a challenge, you know. See, if you see the challenge in a typical ecosystem and more so in the blue economy, as a student of ecology, if you see right from the producer, then a consumer, primary consumer, then the secondary consumer, then a tertiary consumer, and then the detritus. So if you flow in that particular ecosystem, there are all challenges. But what we require to do is, how you integrate those challenges from producer to consumer to different consumers. So in my opinion, when we talk of the numbers of carbon credits, number of, the money you save at the end of point, what happens to the tertiary consumer, whether he gets it? Suppose if you take a Bhitarkanika, we have been citing examples which we may be considering as a study. If you talk of the mangroves, who are growing those mangroves? Who are the communities around them? So are we transferring those benefits? Do they aware of their benefits? Do they aware of the benefits of mangroves? They have a traditional knowledge. We know that there are traditional knowledge. The mangroves can, stop this, the flooding system or that kind of things. So the point is, each web system of the ecosystem, from producer to the consumer, need to be strengthened in terms of finance, in terms of technology, in terms of traditional knowledge. What you require more, the hardcore science need to be translated at the ground level. How you communicate your hardcore science, as in the previous panel we heard that, the science need to be understood, translated to the benefit of the consumers, those who are within that community. And therefore, if you recollect the which came out by the Government of India, it talks about, you enhance the lives of coastal communities, enhance. I mean, we are lives of the coastal community, but you need to enhance those, boost the opportunities, boost the, the integrated finance system within that. How can you integrate the society so that they will have a self-sustained growth for themselves rather than, depending on it. So therefore, these are the challenges probably, in my opinion, need to be addressed. There are in silos, there are being addressed differently. Like we have data, even is mammoth, bytes of data we have, but then we don't know how to process them, how to manage them, and how to integrate it into a more integrated approach. So therefore, in my opinion, probably we need to see how these individual blocks are addressed and in integrating with each other in a very coherent manner. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I would touch upon two key words, which is the title of this session. One is the ecosystem approach, second is the sustainable lives, right? Sustainable blue economy. Okay. If you see the premises on which the blue economy, if you read between the line, so it balances ocean resources use with environmental health through integrated management. Okay. So now coming to the principle of the ecosystem approach. One is we have to integrate the ecosystem into the management and governance framework, right? So there lies the problem. I think we see that what we discussed in the last session, where the whole of government approach, where the sectoral silos can be broken. That is one of the kind of stumbling block in achieving the, if you say, sustainable blue economy. That is one. Second one is biodiversity and ecosystem health. That is, again, the natural capital which need to be understood. Fine, I think one is the sustainable use, but at the same time, you have to also look at this aspect, which I believe is very important. Small example in Seychelles, the fisher community who were doing the octopus fishing, a depleted, deplorable level, so they have to migrate. But one nature conservancy, they could convince this community to preserve 20% area, keep it tranquil for 1 year. And immediately, it's not that it's rejuvenated to the 20% area, the entire thing. And now they, the community, they have come up with a special planning, and so that kind of insight you have to. That is what Dr. Hota also mentioned. You have to create that stewardship, right, and empower them so that they are not only resource user, but they also feel that they are resource manager. And you have to, kind of, that's one. Then nature-based solution, I think lots it talk about it. And coming to next would be the circular economy. I think that we have been discussing. If we think that ecosystem approach, then also the sustainable BE. And social and economic inclusion, what Dr. Hota has already mentioned. What we see, one is that, of course, the traditional knowledge. That's fine. But many of the ecosystem, I think in one of our earlier discussion also say that they flow quietly, so get unnoticed, right? So somehow that has to be, kind of, they must understand the value of that and how they would do it. That's what we are discussing in the other session about the ocean accounting. I think you have to say, value each and every ecosystem services. If you are conserving, how it is paying you back, right? So if that is, these things are not, all these things are not taken into consideration, then you are not going to achieve a sustainable BE. So in my perception, this is the ecosystem approach. Thank you.
Thank you. So those are some very diverse, but I think spanning the full spectrum of issues that we're dealing with. Our measurements on the ground may not be complete. We need new methods and maybe need to focus on the right things to measure. We have issues with the way the financial market values carbon and biodiversity and the link between them. So there needs to be a common language, which clearly is going to be a big challenge that we don't seem to be addressing head on. And we definitely should be addressing that specifically in the Indian context is what I would say, because these challenges differ over space and over political systems like Will was alluding to. And as Dr. Hota was saying, we have to figure out a way to get those benefits back to the consumer, the generator, and came up in the previous session, the people who are actually doing the interventions, the restoration, people who stand to gain the most but also lose the most if we are taking the wrong decisions at the top level. And as Dr. Patnaik was saying, ultimately we really need to be able to bridge that gap between data and policy in a more targeted way. So I guess my question again to you all is, where are the challenges? What challenges do you see from your experience, maybe in India, maybe elsewhere? Why are ecosystems not still treated as, what would need to change for the government to consider ecosystems to be essentially infrastructure that needs to be incorporated into the blue economy planning? Now, this is I would say, more a higher level problem, a top-down problem. Are these attitudes, is a lack of science? Are we not able to communicate correctly with the right people? So yeah, who wants to go first?
Thank you. See, when we talk of the what could be our suggestion to a policymaker or who feeds the policymaker from the lab to, a fork to the farm, or farm to the fork. What, in my opinion, you see, as you said rightly, whether it's a bio indicator, or it is an employment indicator, whether it is a finance indicator, or it is quality of life as an indicator. So I think there is a multiple indicators when you talk of an impact of a particular process. And climate change is a process of multiple processes. I mean, if we can think of, the, say, migration from one country to other country, one city to other cities, when the temperature of a region increases, the agriculture products declines, employment opportunities are declined. So naturally, people tend to migrate from one place to other place. And those migration could lead to some other kinds of activities which probably that society doesn't accept. Those are one of the parameters I think we need to bring into when you discuss about the, when you're synthesizing a particular outcome. Bioindicator, yes, how many trees you have planted, how many mangroves you have planted, how much carbon it's sequestered, how much you trade the carbon. And another issue is with how much skill you are imparting for sustaining that particular process. Women empowerment is another area where probably the local communities, fisher communities for an example, the artisans in the local communities which depend largely on, we saw one of the videos on the Chilika lake, those who are manufacturing those seaweeds are also largely women. So how can we empower them? So those are the probably the silos or the parameters which need to be taken into consideration when you consider an impact of a climate. Say for example, again coming back to the Vitarkanika, how much carbon is sequestered by a mangrove, how much community depend on that, how much community are, the well-being of community has increased versus a baseline data. And also whether hospitals are there, because there is a business are there. Probably those are certain basic parameters which I'm sure are being dealt separately. And different agencies, different government agencies, different scientific organizations have been doing those work. I think what we need to do that get those data, analyze them, see them with those veracity, and then you come out with an outcome that this is my baseline data. I need to improve upon that. I must scale up that kind of things. I think those are the probably the managers of that particular area or the district administration, or for that matter, if a scientific agency is trying to give them on a kind of platter that, look, we are here to give you those information, that will be a base process, I think so.
Thank you. Yeah, I would look at the, what you said, the major challenge is a disconnect between, science and the real practitioner, what they are doing. In the consultation process between fishery department and the forest environment department, what we found, see, they don't understand. I think you will be surprised to know that the marine protected area in India is perhaps lowest in the world. It's less than 1%. Correct, but we actually if you see the basic blue economy, globally, if you see those who are a forerunner or the leader, it's said that the ecosystem is the real driver. I think you have to see to it that sustainability is linked to the ecosystem, the healthy ecosystem that lead to the resilience, because in the face of climate change, that is a must. So now what is happening, the resource depletion, I think it's ultimately leading to that has got a cascading effect, right? So that these kind of policy coherence, I think fishery policy should be in sync with the environmental policy, I think this MPH, because ultimately the MPH would a multiplier. If you, that's what I cited that example. So even if you go for that, then ultimately it's going to be sustainable and long term. But if you see the short term, like golden egg laying hen. So this is what I see that during the consultation process for the blue economy at the national level, when we found that each one is very strongly guarding their turf. They don't want to, kind of and this walk in silos. So that's why I said the whole of government, that framework or that need to be first, kind of thing, and policy coherence would happen only once that happens, right? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So you ask what the major things that are holding us back from doing this, and whether it's a top-down or a bottom-up. I have never spoken to a decision maker who had enough time to make their decision, and I have never spoken to an important decision maker who didn't have at least 5 different people who each wanted completely different, mutually exclusive things all at the same time. So I think the thing that's really holding us back is that the information we tend to pass up and share is often, and I think this is sort of echoing some of the things you were both saying, it's often not really the things that help the person making the decision. So if you've got 5 stakeholders, they all care about 5 different things, and that decision maker needs to know what impact their decision will have on each of those 5 things. So when we often talk about, for example, biodiversity, what really we should be talking about, I think, are the ecosystem services that biodiversity provides. So biodiversity does loads of things for us. We've talked a lot about carbon sequestration, okay? It also helps protect us from floods. It helps protect us from fires. It helps feed us. It is, in fact, literally our food. It helps clean our water. It cleans our air. And so when we convert information about biodiversity in the natural world into those ecosystem services, sometimes again called natural capital, or sometimes called nature's benefits to people, but ultimately the things that biodiversity does to keep us alive, then a decision maker knows what they need to do. They know, okay, if I allow this to happen, if I allow a farm to be put here, then that will annoy that person because they're worried about the water quality. So that means over here, I will change the way the harbour is operating to compensate for that water quality. And so when we give them things in terms of the benefits that nature provides to us, then it's easy for the decisions to be made, because then the choices are more transparent.
Thank you. One thing that I've been wondering about, and I think we all have been wondering about, and it came up in the previous session as well, is risk. It's unpredictability. If we were worrying about gradual climate change or rapid climate change without unpredictability, and we knew it was all warming up, we would have a challenge. But we have a problem that there is unpredictability built into the climate change problem. So I want to ask a potentially difficult question from you guys is, again, at any level, government, on-the-ground science, how can we account for the climatic fluctuations, the increasing uncertainty, and the fact that the common human on the ground, the villager, the person in his livelihood, might need ecosystem-level interventions faster or at a shorter time scale, or in a way that guarantees income in an increasingly uncertain world? So this is a pretty open and difficult question, but I want to pose it to you guys because you're such a diverse and well-informed set of panelists.
I think because I've got the measurement gap hat on, I feel like the only way we could do it well is by measuring things which could go into your prediction model really well and set that as a current baseline, which then informs this risk that we have been talking about. So unless we have got this baseline modeled really well, I think everything that's been built off it in the future would be unreliable. So I think I would get that basic right now if you've got an opportunity, and then plan for the future.
That's a very hard question. Nerdily, I would say Bayesian posterior predictive modeling would allow us to deal with uncertainty. But, so you ask, how can we communicate to people on the ground? My mother was a farmer and my dad was a mechanic, and they didn't go to university, and they completely understand the concepts and ideas of uncertainty. So I think what we do is we present things to them honestly. We say, there's about a 50% chance that it will flood in the next 5 years. Or we say, there's about a 70% chance that it will be at least this hot. And I think people can get that. If you're a farmer, you have to deal with probabilities. You know some years are good, some years are bad. If you're a mechanic, you know that sometimes the axle is going to hold and sometimes it's going to break. And when it breaks, the car is broken. And that's why you do preventative maintenance. So I think what we do is we treat people like what they are, grown-ups who are responsible, and we frame it in a language around probability, because people are quite used to the ideas, again, of things maybe happening and something being fine until it catastrophically is not.
Well, we need to find out if there is a risk first. And once you study either through the modeling or forecasting, whatever. So the science, you just can't implement it on the ground. So the science will fit to a policy making. And once this policy is accepted, when accepted is a big question, you know, it has a political, administrative connotation. So once it's accepted, probably you require some finance to govern it at the ground level. So therefore, this is an integrated approach once the risk is done.
Right, I think I agree with you. That is the crux of the thing. I think somehow we have to have an integrated approach. That is perhaps the core of ecosystem approach. You have to, kind of have to think so they all are in sync, right? So that is what the biggest challenge I see, because even in the highest level, at the policy level, people don't talk to each other. Then forget about it. That never trickles down to the ground level, because I feel that many times the local communities who are the major stakeholder, they feel kind of completely alienated, or they are deprived from their rights or so that then you are not getting their participation. So who are at the real cutting edge or at the ground level? So that is perhaps the annoyance from their end, and we find that becomes a management challenge at the end of the day, right?
Thank you, everybody. I have been gently told that we must wrap up, so I will wrap up. I think we should be discussing this much longer, but hopefully you found this discussion interesting, raised some questions in your head. And I want to end with saying that I was pretty excited about where that last bit went, because I do think it tells us very clearly that we need to be able to predict uncertainty better, and we need financial instruments that buffer the man, the human, the person on the ground against that uncertainty. So that, I hope the people who are thinking about finance in this room are thinking about directing some of that finance towards those kinds of mechanisms, those kinds of instruments, but they have to come through information. And one big thing that came through this discussion, which also came up in the previous one, is that we need data. And we need data that is multidimensional and is currently siloed. So people who are in corridors of power, corridors of decision making, hopefully you're thinking about how you can facilitate this, which is really what we need to get the solutions down to the person on the ground for whom this really matters. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. A big round of applause for our panelists and our session chair. I'll in fact request Dr. Ajit Patnaik, Senior Advisor, World Bank, to do the honors and present tokens of appreciation to our session chair and our panelists. So can we have the mementos, please? Can we have the mementos, please? So I'll request Dr. Ajit Patnaik to first present a memento to our session chair, Professor Samrat Pawar, for wonderfully taking this discussion forward, making it very interesting. We'll request everyone to, yes, step forward so that we can have the right picture. And then, of course, post-presentation of all the mementos, we will also have a group photograph. So first to our session chair, Professor Samrat Pawar. I'll request Dr. Ajit Patnaik to do the honors. To Dr. Sunita Pangala, Associate Professor, Imperial College, London. Dr. Will Pears, Associate Professor, Imperial College, London. And of course, to Dr. Manoj Hota, former advisor, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Govt of India. We'll have a group photograph. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now have the tea break and networking session. Of course, you can also visit the expo. We aren't yet done with day one of the Global Summit. For the main hall, there are no further activities, but we'll have oral presentations after the tea break in the first floor. So that is for everybody's information. But for now, all of you can enjoy a cup of hot tea and do your networking. Please do visit the Startup Pavilion and the Expo and interact with our participants. We are expecting to welcoming all of you tomorrow at 10 a.m. So we are hoping everybody is on time. We want to start tomorrow's sessions also and on time. In fact, we'll be starting at 10. So request everybody to be there before that so that we can start on time. Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful audience for day one, and we're expecting the same from you for day two as well. Thank you.